The gunshot echoed through the frozen wilderness as Noah Reed's flashlight caught the overturned police cruiser, blood streaking down the shattered windshield where Officer Leah Morgan lay dying. His German Shepherd Atlas suddenly froze, hackles raised, not at the wreck, but at something watching from the tree line. In that moment, pulling a stranger from death's grip would unleash a conspiracy that would bring killers to his doorstep and force a single father to become the guardian his military training had prepared him to be. Stay with me as this story unfolds and drop a comment about where you're watching from. I'd love to know how far this tale has traveled. The blizzard had been hammering Millbrook, Colorado for 3 days straight when Noah Reed made the decision that would change everything. 4:30 in the morning, the power had been out since midnight, and his 7-year-old son Max was burning through fever dreams that had nothing to do with the cold. The thermometer read 102.3, and their last bottle of children's Tylenol was empty. "Come on, Atlas," Noah whispered to the German Shepherd curled protectively at Max's bedside. The dog's ears perked, but his amber eyes remained fixed on the sleeping boy. "We need to get to town. I know the roads are hell, but Max needs medicine." Atlas whined softly, a sound that conveyed both reluctance and understanding. The 90-pound shepherd had been with them for 2 years now, ever since Noah had found him at the rescue shelter, though rescue seemed like the wrong word for a dog who'd clearly seen professional training. The way Atlas moved, the way he responded to certain commands Noah had never taught him, suggested a past life in law enforcement or military service. But whatever that past held, it had left scars. Loud noises made him tremble. Sirens sent him hiding, and uniformed officers Atlas would back away tail tucked, as if remembering something he'd rather forget. Noah pulled on his heavy winter coat, the one from his army days, that still fit, despite the years that had passed since Afghanistan. His fingers traced the worn patches where his unit insignia had once been, 82nd Airborne, 3 tours more close calls than he cared to remember. That life felt like a different century now, though the training never really left you. The hypervigilance, the ability to read a room, or in this case, read a storm, these things had become part of his DNA. He checked on Max one more time, pressing his palm against the boy's forehead. Still burning. Sarah would have known exactly what to do. Sarah always knew. But Sarah had been gone for 4 years now, taken by a drunk driver on a clear summer day when the universe had decided that irony was its favorite form of cruelty. Now it was just him and Max trying to figure out life one day at a time in this small mountain town where they'd moved to escape the memories that haunted every corner of Denver. "Guard," Noah commanded softly, and Atlas immediately shifted position, lying down with his body pressed against Max's bed. The dog would stay there until Noah returned, wouldn't move an inch except to check the boy's breathing. It was one of those trained behaviors that Atlas performed with military precision, making Noah wonder again about the dog's mysterious past. The truck started on the third tri-engine, protesting against the sub-zero temperature. Noah let it warm up while he scraped ice from the windshield, the defroster barely making a dent in the frost. The main road to town would be impassable. The county plows wouldn't be out until dawn at the earliest. But there was another way. The old Forest Service road that ran along Miller's Creek. It would add 15 miles to the journey, but it was sheltered from the worst of the wind, and the tree cover usually kept the snow from drifting too deep. Noah shifted into 4-wheel drive and headed out into the pre-dawn darkness. The headlights carved twin tunnels through the falling snow, visibility, maybe 20 feet on a good stretch. The radio crackled with static. No signal out here, just the ghost voices of distant stations bleeding through the atmosphere. He turned it off, preferring the silence punctuated only by the rumble of the engine and the crunch of snow beneath the tires. The Forest Service road was worse than he'd expected. Branches heavy with snow hung low across the path, scraping against the roof of the truck. Twice he had to stop and clear fallen limbs from the road, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air as he worked. The temperature gauge on the dashboard read -12. Even with gloves, his fingers started going numb after just a few minutes outside. He was 3 miles from the Old Creek Bridge when he saw the first sign of trouble. Tire tracks, fresh ones veering off the road and into the trees. The snow was still falling, but these tracks couldn't have been more than an hour old. Noah slowed, his instincts prickling. Out here in this weather, at this hour, nobody should be on this road except someone with an emergency. The tracks led toward the creek, toward the bridge. Noah followed them, creeping forward in first gear. The trees opened up as he approached the crossing, and that's when his headlights caught at the rear end of a vehicle nose down in the ravine beside the bridge. The light bar on top was dark, but the distinctive black and white pattern was unmistakable. Millbrook Police Department. Shit, Noah muttered, already reaching for his phone before remembering there was no signal out here. He grabbed the flashlight from his glove compartment and the first aid kit from behind the seat, old habits from his military days. You never knew when you'd need them. The snow was knee-deep off the road, and Noah had to fight for every step as he made his way down the embankment. The cruiser was wedged between two large pines, the front end crumpled against a boulder. The driver's side was pressed against one of the trees, but the passenger side was accessible. Noah swept his flashlight across the scene. No skid marks on the bridge, no guardrail damage. The cruiser had gone off the road before the bridge, as if the driver had suddenly veered into the ravine, or been forced off. Noah wrenched open the passenger door, and the dome light flickered weakly. The officer was slumped over the steering wheel, long auburn hair matted with blood from a gash on her forehead. Female, maybe early 30s. Her uniform nameplate read Morgan. Blood had run down her face and frozen in crimson streaks across her cheek. Her breathing was shallow, visible in small puffs of vapor in the cold air. Officer Morgan. Noah reached in, checking for a pulse at her neck. It was there, but weak. Can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered, and she made a sound that might have been words. Noah did a quick assessment. The head wound was bad, but not immediately life-threatening. No obvious broken bones that he could see, but internal injuries were always a possibility in a crash like this. The real danger was the cold. The engine was dead, no heat, and at these temperatures, hypothermia would kill her faster than her injuries. Noah tried the radio in the cruiser. Dead. The impact must have damaged the electrical system. He needed to get her out, get her warm, but moving someone with potential spinal injuries. A soft groan from Officer Morgan made the decision for him. Her eyes opened, unfocused at first, then suddenly sharp with panic. She grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. They're coming back, she whispered, her voice hoarse. They'll kill me. Who? Noah leaned closer. Who's coming back? But her eyes rolled back and she went limp again. Noah looked around, suddenly very aware of how exposed they were. The trees seemed to press in closer shadows, dancing in the beam of his flashlight. If someone had run her off the road, he made his decision. Carefully supporting her neck as best he could, Noah extracted Officer Morgan from the cruiser. She was lighter than he expected, maybe 130 pounds in full gear. He carried her up the embankment, his boots slipping in the snow muscles straining against the grade. By the time he got her to his truck, he was breathing hard, sweat freezing on his face. Noah laid her across the back seat, cranking the heater to maximum. Her skin was pale lips tinged blue. He needed to get her to the hospital, but that was 40 minutes away in good weather. In this storm, maybe twice that. And if someone really was coming back to finish what they'd started. His house was 10 minutes away. He had medical supplies left over from his Army days and Sarah's time as an ER nurse. He could stabilize her there, call for help once the phones were working. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than sitting here waiting for either death or killers to find them. As he pulled back onto the road, Noah caught movement in his rearview mirror. Just for a second, a shadow among the trees near the wrecked cruiser. Could have been anything, a deer, a branch following his imagination. But his instincts, honed in places where paranoia kept you alive, said otherwise. Someone had been watching. The drive home felt like hours, though the clock showed only 8 minutes had passed. Noah kept checking the mirror, but the road behind remained dark. Officer Morgan stirred once, mumbling something that sounded like a name, Trevor, before falling silent again. Noah's house sat at the end of a quarter-mile driveway, a modest 2-story cabin he'd bought with his disability check and Sarah's life insurance. It was isolated, nearest neighbor was a mile away, which usually felt peaceful. Now that isolation felt like vulnerability. He pulled into the garage, closing the door behind them before killing the engine. The automatic light had burned out months ago, leaving them in darkness until he found his flashlight again. Officer Morgan was unconscious, but breathing steadily. Noah lifted her out of the truck, carrying her through the connecting door into the house. Atlas met them immediately, his whole body tense with alertness. The dog took one look at the uniformed officer in Noah's arms and began to back away, his usual fear response to police. But then something changed. Atlas's nose twitched, catching a scent, and he moved closer, whimpering softly. His tail, usually tucked when cops were around, began a slow, uncertain wag. "You know her, boy?" Noah asked. But Atlas's attention was fixed on Officer Morgan. Noah carried her to the living room, laying her on the couch closest to the fireplace. The fire had died down to embers, but it didn't take long to get it roaring again. The warmth filled the room and color began returning to Officer Morgan's face. Working quickly, Noah retrieved his medical kit from the hall closet. The head wound needed cleaning and probably stitches, but he could handle that. He'd stitched up plenty of wounds in Afghanistan, his own and others. As he worked, Atlas positioned himself at Officer Morgan's feet, his body tense as if standing guard. "What's going on, Atlas?" Noah murmured, cleaning the blood from the officer's face. "What aren't you telling me?" A small voice from the stairs made him turn. "Dad?" Max stood there in his dinosaur pajamas, hair sticking up at odd angles, face still flushed with fever. "Who's the lady?" "Someone who needed help," Noah said, moving to intercept his son before he got too close. "You should be in bed, buddy." "I heard Atlas whining. He never whines." Max peered around Noah's leg. "Is she a police officer? Atlas doesn't like police." "I know, but—" Noah stopped. Atlas wasn't acting afraid anymore. The dog had positioned himself between Officer Morgan and the window's ears, swiveling to track sounds outside that human ears couldn't catch. "Go back to bed, Max. I'll bring you some medicine in a minute." "Is she going to die?" Max asked with the blunt curiosity of childhood. "No," Noah said firmly. "She's not going to die. Now bed." Max reluctantly headed back upstairs, but not before giving Officer Morgan one last concerned look. Noah returned to his patient, checking her pupils, responsive, equal-sized good signs. The head wound was deep, but clean. No skull fragments that he could feel. He applied butterfly bandages to hold it closed, then wrapped gauze around her head. As he worked, he noticed other things: bruising on her wrists, older maybe a week, a healing cut on her palm that looked deliberate, precise, defensive wounds. And there was something about her duty belt. The holster was unsnapped, but the weapon was still there. If someone had run her off the road, why hadn't she drawn her gun? Officer Morgan's eyes opened suddenly, fully alert this time. Her hand went immediately to her weapon, but Noah caught her wrist gently. "Easy," he said. "You're safe. You're in my house. I found you in your cruiser by Old Creek Bridge." She stared at him for a long moment, processing. Then her gaze shifted to Atlas, and her expression changed: recognition, surprise, and something that looked like grief. "Atlas," she whispered. The dog whined, tail wagging harder now, and moved closer to nuzzle her hand. "You know my dog?" Noah asked. "Officer Morgan?" "Leah," her nameplate said, struggled to sit up, wincing at the movement. "He's not your dog. He was—" She stopped, pressing her hand to her head. "God, everything's spinning." "You have a concussion," Noah said. "You need to take it easy. I can call an ambulance." "No." The word came out sharp, panicked. Leah grabbed his arm. "No ambulance, no calls, please. You need medical attention." "I need to not be dead," she said bluntly. "And if you call this in, that's exactly what I'll be by morning." Noah sat back, studying her. "Who's trying to kill you?" Leah's laugh was bitter. "How much time do you have?" "Start with why someone ran you off the road." "Because I know too much. Because I've been collecting evidence for 18 months. Because I'm the only one left who cares that they murdered my husband." Atlas whined again, pressing his head against Leah's leg. She ran her fingers through his fur, tears starting to form in her eyes. "Trevor loved this dog," she whispered. "Called him his best partner. When Trevor died, Atlas disappeared. I thought he'd been killed too." Noah's mind was racing, putting pieces together. "Your husband was a cop." "K-9 unit," Leah confirmed. "Trevor Morgan." "Maybe you heard about it. Officer killed in the line of duty 2 years ago. Drug bust gone wrong, they said. Except it wasn't wrong. It was exactly what someone planned." Before Noah could respond, Atlas suddenly went rigid, a low growl building in his throat. He moved to the window, every muscle tense. "Someone's coming," Leah said, reading the dog's body language with practiced ease. Atlas always knew before we did. Noah moved to the window, staying to the side, peering out through a gap in the curtains. The snow had stopped, and in the growing pre-dawn light he could see his driveway. Empty, for now. "Could be nothing," he said, but his hand moved instinctively to the pistol he kept in the drawer of the side table. Old habits. "With Atlas, it's never nothing," Leah said, forcing herself to stand despite Noah's protests. "He can hear engines from half a mile away. If he's alerting someone's coming, then we need to get you out of here." "Too late for that. If they're coming, they already know I'm here." Leah checked her service weapon movements, professional, despite her injury. "How many ways in? Front door, back door, garage?" Noah answered automatically. "Windows, but they're all locked. Won't stop them. These people, they don't knock." "Who exactly are these people?" Leah met his eyes. "How well do you know Sheriff Price?" Noah's blood ran cold. Dalton Price had been sheriff for 15 years, knew everyone in town, had been to Noah's house for barbecues. "You're saying the sheriff is trying to kill you?" "I'm saying the sheriff has been running drugs through this county for the last 5 years, using his position to eliminate competition and anyone who gets too curious. Trevor got too curious." A car door slammed outside. Atlas's growl deepened. "Dad!" Max appeared at the top of the stairs again. "Max, go to your room and lock the door." Noah said his command voice, leaving no room for argument. "Now!" For once, Max didn't question disappearing down the hall. Noah heard his door click shut. "I'm sorry," Leah said. "I'm so sorry. Finding me, bringing me here, I've put you and your son in danger." "We'll deal with that later," Noah said, checking his pistol's magazine. "Right now we need to—" The knock at the door was almost polite. 3 measured raps. "Noah, it's Sheriff Price. Saw your truck heading back from town. Everything all right in there?" Leah had gone pale. She mouthed one word: basement. Noah nodded, gesturing for her to go. She moved toward the basement door, Atlas following without being commanded. The dog knew danger when he smelled it. Another knock, harder this time. "Noah, come on, buddy. I know you're in there. Your truck's still warm." Noah took a breath, slipping the pistol into the back of his waistband, covering it with his shirt. He opened the door but didn't invite Price in. Sheriff Dalton Price stood on his porch, all 6 feet 4 inches of him, built like a linebacker gone slightly to seed. His smile was friendly, but his eyes were scanning, searching. "Morning, Sheriff. Hell of a storm." "That it is." Price's gaze moved past Noah into the house. "Mind if I come in? Freeze my balls off out here." "Max is sick, probably contagious. Wouldn't want you catching anything." Price's smile widened, but it didn't reach his eyes. "That's considerate of you, Noah. Real considerate. Thing is, we've got a situation. One of my officers went missing last night. Leah Morgan. You know her?" "Can't say I do." "Pretty thing. Auburn hair, about yee-high." Price held his hand at shoulder level. "Her cruiser went off the road near Old Creek Bridge. Found it about an hour ago." "That's terrible. Is she okay?" "That's what we're trying to figure out. Funny thing is, we found fresh tire tracks at the scene. Looked like someone stopped to help, or to take her." Noah kept his expression neutral. "A lot of people use that road." "In this storm, at this hour?" Price shook his head. "Not many folks that brave. Or that stupid. You didn't happen to go that way, did you?" "I took the main road to town. Pharmacy run for Max." "Pharmacy's not open yet." "Noticed that when I got there. Turned around and came home." Price stared at him for a long moment. "You know, Noah, I've always liked you. Veteran single dad keeping to yourself. That's admirable. But sometimes keeping to yourself can be dangerous. Sometimes you can accidentally get involved in things you don't understand. I'll keep that in mind." "You do that." Price stepped back, but his hand moved to rest on his service weapon. "And if you happen to see Officer Morgan or anyone matching her description, you'll call me immediately, won't you?" "Of course." "Good man." Price started to turn away, then stopped. "Oh, one more thing. That's a nice dog you have. German Shepherd, right?" Funny thing, we used to have a K9 unit with a shepherd. Looked just like yours. Dog went missing couple years back, same time his handler was killed. Trevor Morgan, Leah's husband. Weird coincidence, huh? Noah's jaw tightened. Very weird. Thought so. Price tipped his hat. You have a good morning, Noah. Hope Max feels better. And remember, if you see anything unusual, you call me. Wouldn't want anyone else getting hurt in this weather. The threat was barely veiled. Noah watched Price walk back to his cruiser, noting the two other vehicles parked at the end of his driveway. Deputies, probably. Price hadn't come alone. Noah closed the door, locking it, then immediately went to the basement. Leah was sitting on the floor, Atlas pressed against her side, both of them tense. He knows, she said simply. Yeah, he knows. Noah pulled out his phone. Still no signal. The landline had been dead since the storm started. We need to get you out of here. There's nowhere to go. He owns this town. Half the deputies are on his payroll. The other half are too scared to do anything. What about state police? You think I haven't tried every time I get close to someone I can trust they end up transferred or dead? Accident, they always say. Just like Trevor. Noah was already moving his mind, shifting into tactical mode. Then we make a stand here. How many men does he have? In town. Maybe a dozen he really trusts, but right now, the 3 cars outside, probably 2 men each. 6 total. I've faced worse odds. Leah looked at him sharply. You were military. It wasn't a question. Noah nodded. Rangers, 3 tours in Afghanistan. And you're willing to risk your life for a stranger. I'm willing to protect my home, my son. The fact that you're here just means we're in this together. Before Leah could respond, Atlas started growling again. This time, the fur along his spine stood straight up. They're moving, Leah said. Noah went to the narrow basement window, peering out. He could see figures spreading out around his house, taking positions. Professional coordinated. These weren't ordinary deputies. They're going to come in hard and fast, Leah said. Make it look like I broke in, you defended yourself. Everyone died in the crossfire. Price is good at staging scenes. Then we don't let him write this story. Noah moved to an old footlocker in the corner, spinning the combination lock. Inside was his past gear he'd kept from his service weapons he'd maintained out of habit more than necessity. An AR-15 broken down but clean. Body armor that might still fit. Ammunition he'd stockpiled not from paranoia, but from the simple soldier's wisdom that it was better to have and not need. You're really going to fight them? No, Noah said, assembling the rifle with practiced efficiency. We're going to fight them. You know these men, their tactics, their weaknesses. And Atlas here, he's already shown he'll protect you. As if understanding, Atlas barked once, sharp and loud. From upstairs, Max's voice, Dad, there are people outside. Noah's blood ran cold. He sprinted up the stairs, Leah behind him despite her injury. Max was at his window peering through the blinds. Get away from there! Noah pulled his son back just as the window exploded, inward glass showering the room. Max screamed and Noah covered him with his body, feeling fragments pepper his back. Basement now! Noah carried Max, running for the stairs as more windows shattered throughout the house. They weren't using ordinary rounds, these were breaching shots meant to disorient and terrify. In the basement, Noah put Max in the corner furthest from any windows, Atlas immediately positioning himself in front of the boy. Leah had her service weapon out, checking the magazine. They'll come through multiple entry points, she said, her professional calm a stark contrast to the situation. Price likes overwhelming force. Then we need to funnel them. Noah handed her the rifle. You're a better shot than me with that head injury. I'll take point. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Noah checked his pistol one more time. My son is down here. That's all the reason I need. The front door crashed open above them. Heavy footsteps, multiple sets spreading through the house. Noah Reed! Price's voice boomed. We know she's here. Send her out, and this ends peaceful. Noah and Leah exchanged looks. They both knew there would be nothing peaceful about how this ended if Price got his way. You've got 30 seconds before we come down there, Price continued. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Dad, I'm scared, Max whispered. Noah knelt beside his son. I know, buddy, but remember what I taught you. Sometimes scary things happen, but we face them. We don't let them win. Like when Mom died. Yeah, Noah said, his throat tight. Like that. Noah, Price called. 20 seconds. Leah moved to the bottom of the stairs, rifle raised. They'll use flashbangs first. Close your eyes when I tell you. Noah positioned himself behind the water heater concrete and steel that would provide some cover. His mind was calculating angles, distance, remembering every firefight he'd been in overseas. Except this time he wasn't fighting insurgents in some distant country. This was his home. His son was behind him. 10 seconds. Atlas began to bark, the sound fierce and primal. It was a sound Noah had never heard from the dog before. Not fear, not warning, but pure protective rage. 5 seconds. Leah tensed. Noah steadied his breathing. The basement door burst open and something clattered down the stairs. Eyes! Leah shouted. The flashbang detonated, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Even with his eyes closed, Noah saw the white-hot glare through his eyelids. Atlas yelped but didn't move from his position protecting Max. Footsteps on the stairs. Leah fired the rifle crack, adding to the ringing in Noah's ears. Someone screamed and tumbled down the steps. Moving left! Noah called out, marine muscle memory taking over. He fired 3 shots at a figure appearing in the doorway, center mass watching the man spin and fall. More footsteps above running. They were circling, looking for another way down. The narrow stairs were a fatal funnel, and Price's men had just learned that the hard way. Price? Leah shouted. I've got everything. 18 months of evidence, documents, recordings, photographs. You kill me, it all goes public. Silence for a moment, then Price's laugh. You think I care about evidence? You think anyone's going to believe a dead cop over me? A window shattered at the far end of the basement and tear gas canisters rolled across the floor. The chemical smoke began to fill the room, burning eyes and throat. Max started coughing, crying. We need to move, Noah said, but there was nowhere to go. The stairs were a killing field, the windows too small to escape through. Atlas suddenly broke from his position, charging toward the stairs. Noah called for him to stop, but the dog was beyond hearing. He bounded up the steps and into the chaos above. Gunshots screaming, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. Atlas! Leah started to follow, but Noah held her back. Wait. More gunshots. Then an eerie silence broken only by Atlas's growling. Jesus Christ! Someone shouted from upstairs. The dog got Morrison! Shoot it! Price's voice. I can't get a clear shot. It's too fast. Noah used the distraction. He pulled Max to his feet, covering the boy's mouth and nose with his shirt. We're going up. Stay behind me. They moved as one, Noah leading Max in the middle, Leah covering their rear. At the top of the stairs, Noah peered around the corner. 2 bodies on the floor, one clutching his throat where Atlas had torn it open. The dog was a blur of motion, keeping 2 other men pinned behind the kitchen counter. Move! Noah pushed Max toward the back door. They were almost there when Price stepped out from the hallway, shotgun raised. Time slowed. Noah saw the barrel swing toward them, saw Price's finger tighten on the trigger. He pushed Max aside, bringing his pistol up, knowing he wouldn't be fast enough. The shot was deafening, but it wasn't Price's shotgun. Leah's rifle cracked, and Price staggered his shot, going wide, punching a basketball-sized hole in the wall. He looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest, surprise replacing the smugness on his face. That's for Trevor, you son of a bitch, Leah said. Price fell to his knees, then forward. The shotgun clattered across the floor. Sheriff's down, someone shouted. Sheriff's down. The remaining deputies seemed to lose their nerve. Noah heard car doors slamming, engines starting. They were leaving rats fleeing the sinking ship. Atlas appeared, blood on his muzzle, but moving without injury. He went straight to Max, licking the boy's face, checking him over. It's over, Leah said, but she was swaying on her feet. The adrenaline was wearing off and her injuries were catching up. Noah caught her as she started to fall. Easy. We need to get you to a hospital. No, we need to... The evidence, I have to... The evidence can wait. You're bleeding again. Sure enough, the bandage on her head was soaked through. The exertion had reopened the wound, sirens in the distance getting closer. But these sounded different, more of them, and coming fast. State police, Leah mumbled. Called them. Before the crash? Told them everything. They're coming. You set this up. No. Price found me first. But they're coming. Had to be sure. The sirens were getting louder. Through the broken window, Noah could see a stream of vehicles coming up his driveway. State police, FBI ambulances. The cavalry, finally. Dad! Max's voice was small, scared. Is it really over? Noah held his son close, feeling the boy shake with delayed terror. Yeah, buddy, it's over. But even as he said it, looking at the destruction of his home, the bodies on his floor, he knew it wasn't really over. There would be questions, investigations, trials. The quiet life he'd built here was finished. Leah's hand found his. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry I brought this to your door. You didn't bring it, Noah said. It was already here, you just exposed it. The first state trooper entered weapon drawn but lowered when he saw the scene. We need medical here, he called out. As the paramedics swarmed in, as Leah was loaded onto a gurney, as crime scene tape began to section off his home, Noah held his son and wondered what came next. Atlas pressed against their legs, the three of them a small island in the chaos. Sir, a state police detective approached. I'm going to need to ask you some questions. Noah nodded. Can I put my son somewhere safe first? Of course, take your time. Time. Noah almost laughed. Time was all they had now. Time to heal, time to rebuild, time to figure out what their lives would look like after this morning had shattered everything they knew. But as he watched the paramedics work on Leah, saw her eyes find his across the room, saw her mouth the words thank you, he realized something. Sometimes life doesn't give you a choice about being a hero. Sometimes it just puts you in a moment where you either step up or step aside. Noah had stepped up. For a stranger who turned out to be connected to his dog's past. For a truth that needed to be told. For a 7-year-old boy who would grow up knowing his father had done the right thing when it mattered most. The sun was finally rising, sending pale light through the shattered windows. The storm had passed, leaving the world covered in pristine white snow, as if nature was trying to cover the violence with something pure. Max tugged on Noah's shirt. Dad, is the police lady going to be okay? Noah watched Leah give the paramedics a thumbs up as they lifted her into the ambulance. Yeah, buddy, she's going to be fine. And Atlas? He was really brave. The German shepherd looked up at the sound of his name, tail wagging despite everything. There was something different in his eyes now. The haunted look was gone, replaced by something Noah recognized from his own mirror. Purpose. Redemption. The healing that comes from facing your demons and winning. He was brave, Noah agreed. We all were. As the ambulance pulled away, Leah visible through the back windows, Noah felt something shift in his chest. This wasn't how he'd planned to spend his morning. He just wanted to get medicine for his son. Instead, he'd ended up in a gunfight with corrupt cops, protecting a woman he'd never met before, uncovering a conspiracy that went to the heart of his adopted town. But standing there in the wreckage of his home, his son safe beside him, a brave dog at their feet, and the knowledge that justice would finally come to Millbrook, Noah felt something he hadn't experienced in years. He felt alive. The detective was waiting patiently, notebook in hand. Noah took a deep breath, ready to tell the story. The whole story. Starting with a dying cop on a frozen morning and ending with the truth finally coming to light. It was a hell of a story. And it was just the beginning. The detective's questions went on for 3 hours, meticulously documenting every second of the morning's events. Noah answered them all while watching through the kitchen window as crime scene technicians processed his home, their cameras flashing like miniature lightning strikes against the morning sun. Max had fallen asleep on the couch, exhausted from fear and fever, with Atlas standing guard beside him, the dog's eyes tracking every person who moved through their space. Mr. Reed, Detective Harrison said, closing his notebook finally. What you did here today, not many civilians would have had the courage or the skill. I protected my family, Noah replied simply. Anyone would have done the same. Harrison's expression suggested he knew better, but he didn't argue. We're going to need this house for at least 48 hours. Do you have somewhere to stay? Noah hadn't thought that far ahead. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him feeling hollow and shaky. Their home was a crime scene, The walls were riddled with bullet holes, windows shattered, blood staining the hardwood floors Sarah had loved so much. "We'll figure something out," he said. "The department can put you up in a hotel." "No." Noah's response was sharper than intended. "No offense, detective, but I don't trust anyone with a badge right now except Officer Morgan." Harrison nodded slowly. "I understand. For what it's worth, we've arrested 8 deputies so far this morning. Price's network is falling apart. Officer Morgan's evidence, it's comprehensive. She risked everything to compile it." "Where is she now?" "Mountain View Medical Center under state police protection. She's stable, asking about you, actually. Wanted to make sure you and your son were safe." Noah felt something warm bloom in his chest, quickly suppressed. He had no business feeling anything beyond relief that they'd all survived. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Harrison's hand moved to his weapon and Noah tensed, but the voice that called out was familiar. "Noah, it's Jim Brennan. I heard what happened." Jim owned the ranch next property over a mile down the road. He was one of the few people in Millbrook that Noah considered a friend. Harrison nodded and Noah opened the door. Jim stood there in his worn Carhartt jacket, his weathered face creased with concern. Behind him, his wife Margaret waited in their truck. "Jesus Christ, Noah," Jim said, taking in the destruction. "The whole town's talking. Sheriff Price really..." Noah confirmed. "That son of a bitch. Always knew something was off about him." Jim's gaze found Max sleeping on the couch. "Look, you can't stay here. Margaret and I have the guest house. It's not much, but it's warm and clean. You and Max are welcome as long as you need." Noah's throat tightened. In 4 years of living in Millbrook, he'd kept people at arm's length, afraid of the complications that came with connections, but here was Jim offering shelter without hesitation. "I appreciate that, Jim. We've got Atlas, too." "Bring him. Margaret loves dogs." Jim's expression grew serious. "Noah, what you did. Standing up to Price. This town owes you a debt." "I didn't do it for the town." "Doesn't matter why you did it. What matters is you did." Jim pulled out his truck keys. "I'll drive you over whenever you're ready. Margaret's already making up the beds." An hour later, after the detective had finally finished and released them, Noah carried a still sleeping Max to Jim's truck. Atlas jumped into the bed without hesitation, and they drove through a town that had transformed in just a few hours. State police vehicles were everywhere. The sheriff's office was surrounded by crime scene tape. People stood in clusters on street corners talking in hushed tones, their entire understanding of their community shattered. The guest house on Jim's property was small but comfortable, a single-bedroom cottage that had once housed ranch hands. Margaret had indeed prepared everything: fresh sheets, towels, even a pot of soup warming on the stove. "You need anything at all, you call," she said, maternal concern evident in every word. "That boy's been through enough." After they left, Noah tucked Max into the bed, the boy stirring slightly. "Dad, are we home?" "We're safe," Noah said, which wasn't really an answer but seemed to satisfy Max, who drifted back to sleep. Noah sat in the small living room, Atlas at his feet, and finally allowed himself to process what had happened. In the span of a few hours, he'd gone from a simple medical run to killing 2 men, possibly 3. His hands started to shake, and he clenched them into fists. This wasn't Afghanistan. These weren't enemy combatants. They were Americans' cops, even if corrupt ones. But they would have killed Max. That thought steadied him. They would have killed his son to cover their crimes, and Noah had done what was necessary. The shaking stopped. His phone buzzed. The cell towers were apparently working again. It was an unknown number, but something made him answer. "Mr. Reed." "This is Dr. Patel at Mountain View Medical Center. Officer Morgan is asking for you. She says it's important." Noah looked at Max sleeping peacefully. Jim had said to call if he needed anything. 20 minutes later, with Margaret watching Max, Noah walked into the hospital's ICU. The state trooper at Leah's door checked his ID twice before letting him pass. Leah was propped up in bed, bandages wrapped around her head, IV lines feeding into her arm, but her eyes were clear and alert when they found his. "You came," she said softly. "You saved our lives with that shot," Noah replied, pulling a chair close to her bed. "Least I could do was check on you." "I've been saving that shot for 2 years. Leah said, her voice bitter. Every time I went to the range, I imagined it was Price in my sights. I'm not proud of that. You should be. He was a killer. He was also once a good cop, or at least I thought he was. She shifted, wincing at the movement. I need to tell you about Trevor, about Atlas. You deserve to know. Noah waited, letting her gather her thoughts. Trevor and I met at the academy, she began. Both young, both eager to make a difference. He went K9, I went patrol. Atlas was his second dog raised from a puppy. They were incredible together. It was like they could read each other's minds. She paused, lost in memory, and Noah could see the grief still raw in her eyes. 3 years ago, Trevor started noticing things. Drugs that should have been in evidence going missing. Arrest reports that didn't match what he'd witnessed. Money floating around the department that couldn't be explained. He tried to bring it to Price, thinking the sheriff would want to clean house. But Price was the source, Noah guessed. The center of it all. Trevor didn't know that until it was too late. Price played concerned, said he'd investigate personally. 2 weeks later, Trevor was dead. Official story was a drug bust gone wrong. Dealer got the drop on him, but I knew Trevor. He was too careful, too good. And Atlas was there. What happened to him? That's the strangest part. The report said Atlas was killed too, but they never found his body. Price said he probably crawled off to die somewhere. But I knew that was bullshit. Atlas would never leave Trevor, not even in death. She reached out, and Noah took her hand without thinking. After Trevor died, I started digging. Quietly, carefully. I found proof that the drug dealer who supposedly killed Trevor had been dead for 3 days before the shooting. I found witnesses who saw Price's personal vehicle at the scene. I found the money trail, the connections to cartels, the whole network. Why didn't you run Take It Federal? I tried 3 times. The first contact had a heart attack. The second drove off a mountain road. The third just disappeared. Price had reach I didn't even know about. So I stayed, kept collecting evidence, waiting for the right moment. And last night, Price found my hidden cash. I don't know how. Maybe I got sloppy. Maybe someone saw me. But he called me personally, told me I had 1 hour to run. Said it was professional courtesy for Trevor's widow. But you didn't run. I called the state police from a burner phone, uploaded everything to a secure server, then tried to make it to the state line. Price's men caught me at Old Creek Bridge. Ran me off the road. I thought I was going to die there, freezing in that ravine, my husband's murder unavenged. Her hand tightened on his. Then you appeared, like some kind of guardian angel with a flashlight. Just a dad trying to get medicine, Noah deflected. No, Leah said firmly. You could have left me there. Could have driven away when you realized the danger. Could have given me to Price, but you didn't. You fought for me, a stranger. Do you know how rare that is? Noah didn't know what to say to that, so he changed the subject. How did Atlas end up at the rescue shelter? I don't know. That's been haunting me. Whoever took him after Trevor's death kept him hidden for months, then abandoned him. Why? What did they know? Before Noah could respond, the door opened and Detective Harrison entered, followed by a woman in an FBI windbreaker. Agent Chen, FBI. The woman introduced herself. Mr. Reed, Officer Morgan, I apologize for interrupting, but we've had a development. Leah straightened suddenly, all cop despite her injuries. What kind of development? One of Price's deputies wants to make a deal. Says he has information about Officer Trevor Morgan's death, specifically about who really pulled the trigger. The room went silent. Leah's face had gone pale. Who? She whispered. Deputy Ray Coleman. He's been on Price's payroll for 5 years. He was there that night. Noah felt Leah's hand start to tremble and covered it with both of his. What's he saying? Leah asked. Agent Chen consulted her tablet. He says Price didn't pull the trigger himself. Says there was someone else there, someone nobody suspected. Who? Leah's voice was barely audible now. Coleman claims it was Deputy Chief Martin Wells. Leah gasped. Martin. No, that's impossible. Martin was Trevor's mentor. He spoke at the funeral. He helped me with the insurance claims. He also had access to all your husband's cases, Agent Chen pointed out. Would have known exactly what Trevor was investigating. Leah looked like she'd been punched. Noah could see her world tilting again, another betrayal in a series of betrayals. "I need to hear it," she said suddenly. "I need to hear Coleman say it. Officer Morgan, you're in no condition." "I'm going." She started pulling at her IV lines. "Leah, stop," Noah said firmly. "You have a concussion. You can barely stand." "I don't care. I've waited 2 years to know who killed my husband." Noah looked at Agent Chen. "Can you bring Coleman here?" "That's highly irregular." "So is everything about this case," Harrison interjected. "Officer Morgan has earned the right to hear this." Chen considered, then nodded. "Give me an hour." After they left, Leah collapsed back against the pillows, tears streaming down her face. "Martin held me while I cried at Trevor's funeral. He told me Trevor was a hero. He looked me in the eyes and lied." "People are capable of terrible things when they're desperate," Noah said quietly. "I've seen good men do evil things when they thought they had no choice." "Did you in Afghanistan?" Noah was quiet for a long moment. "I saw people make impossible choices. Sometimes there's no good option, just degrees of bad. This wasn't like that. This was greed, pure and simple." "Maybe. Or maybe Wells had something on him too. Price seemed to have leverage on everyone." They sat in silence until Agent Chen returned with Coleman in shackles, accompanied by 2 federal marshals. The deputy was a thin, nervous man who couldn't meet Leah's eyes. "Tell her," Chen commanded. Coleman's voice was barely above a whisper. Trevor had figured it all out. Not just the drugs, but the money laundering, the connections to the Sinaloa cartel. Price was in too deep to just retire. The cartel would have killed him if he tried to get out. "I don't care about Price's problems," Leah said coldly. "Tell me about Martin." Wells had gambling debts, bad ones, the kind where they break your legs if you're lucky. Price offered to make them go away if Wells helped with Trevor. "Helped?" Leah's voice could have frozen fire. "Trevor trusted Wells. When Wells called him that night, said he needed backup on something sensitive, Trevor didn't hesitate. Drove right to the warehouse. Atlas was with him, always was." Coleman paused, swallowing hard. "Continue," Chen ordered. Wells led Trevor inside. Price was waiting. They tried to make it quick, but Trevor fought. God, he fought hard. Atlas went crazy, attacked. Price tore his arm up pretty bad. That's when Wells shot Trevor, twice in the chest, once in the head. Leah made a sound like a wounded animal. Noah squeezed her hand tighter. Atlas wouldn't leave Trevor's body. Stood over him, snarling at anyone who came close. Price wanted to shoot him, but Wells said no. Said killing a police dog would raise too many questions, so Wells took him. Don't know what he did with him after that. "Where's Wells now?" Leah asked, her voice deadly quiet. "In the wind," Chen answered. "Disappeared about an hour after Price went down. We have Bolos out, but he had a head start." "He won't run far," Leah said with certainty. "Martin has a cabin up near Crystal Lake. Off the books, not in his name. Trevor helped him build it." Chen was already on her phone relaying the information. Within minutes, units were dispatched. Coleman was led away and Chen departed to coordinate the search, leaving Noah and Leah alone again. "I need to be there when they arrest him," Leah said. "No, you need to heal. Let the FBI do their job." "Would you, if it was Sarah's killer?" The question hit like a physical blow. Noah thought about the drunk driver who'd killed his wife, how he'd sat in that courtroom every day of the trial needing to see justice done. "No," he admitted. "I wouldn't." "Then you understand." Noah's phone buzzed. It was Margaret. Max was awake and asking for him. "I have to go," he said reluctantly. "Noah?" Leah caught his hand as he stood. "What happens now?" "After all this?" It was a loaded question. They both knew she wasn't just asking about the case. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "Everything's different now. Atlas should stay with you and Max. He's bonded with you. It's what Trevor would want." "We'll see," Noah said, though he couldn't imagine Atlas leaving now. The dog had found his purpose again with them. As he drove back to Jim's ranch, Noah's mind was spinning. In 24 hours, his quiet life had exploded into violence and conspiracy. He'd killed to protect his son and a stranger. He'd uncovered corruption that ran to the heart of his adopted town. And somewhere in the chaos, he'd found himself caring about Leah Morgan in a way that terrified him. The guest house was warm with afternoon sun when he arrived. Max ran to him immediately, Atlas at his heels. Dad, Margaret made pancakes, and Atlas did a trick. He can shake hands. That's great, buddy. Noah scooped his son up, holding him close. Is the police lady okay? She's going to be fine. Good. Atlas was worried about her. He kept whining and looking at the door. Noah looked at the German shepherd, who was indeed staring at the door as if expecting Leah to walk through it. Maybe we can visit her later, Noah said. Can she come live with us when our house is fixed? Max. Atlas would like it, and she's nice, and she doesn't have anyone else, does she? Her husband died like Mommy. The innocent observation cut deep. Max was right. Leah was alone, just like they had been alone. But that didn't mean... Noah's phone rang. It was Harrison. Mr. Reed thought you'd want to know. We got Wells. He was exactly where Officer Morgan said he'd be. Good. That's good. There's something else. We've been going through Price's house, found something interesting in his safe. Documents about Atlas. Apparently after Wells took him from the scene, he kept the dog locked up for months trying to break him. When that didn't work, he dumped him at the shelter in the next county, figured he'd be put down. Noah looked at Atlas, imagining the trauma the dog had endured, watching his handler die, then months of captivity and abuse. No wonder he'd been terrified of uniforms. Mr. Reed, you still there? Yeah, I'm here. Officer Morgan wanted you to know, said you deserved the whole truth about Atlas. After Harrison hung up, Noah sat on the floor, and Atlas immediately came to him, resting his big head on Noah's knee. You've been through hell, haven't you, boy? Noah said softly. Atlas's tail wagged once, and he pressed closer. Max sat down beside them. We're his family now, right? Dad. Yeah, buddy. We're his family. And Officer Leah. Noah didn't have an answer for that. The truth was, he didn't know what Leah would be to them. The trauma bond of survival was powerful, but it wasn't a foundation for anything lasting. Was it? That evening, as Max played with Atlas in the small yard, Noah's phone rang again. It was Leah. They're releasing me tomorrow, she said without preamble. The FBI wants to put me in protective custody until the trials, but I refused. Leah, there could still be others out there. I'm done hiding. I've been hiding for 2 years and I'm done. She paused. I know this is presumptuous, but I don't have anywhere to go. My house is... I haven't been back since Trevor died. I can't. What are you asking? Jim Brennan's wife, Margaret, called me. Said they have a second guest house. Said you vouched for me. Noah smiled despite himself. Margaret had been busy. It's a small town, he said. News travels fast. Is it okay? If I'm close by, I know you and Max need space to process everything. Leah, Noah interrupted. It's okay. More than okay. The relief in her voice was palpable. Thank you for everything. I know I keep saying it, but stop. We survived together. That creates a bond whether we want it or not. Do you want it? The question hung between them, loaded with possibility and complication. I don't know what I want, Noah admitted, except for Max to be safe and happy. That's enough for now, Leah said softly. More than enough. After they hung up, Noah stood in the doorway watching his son play with Atlas. The dog was gentle with Max, patient in a way that spoke of training, but also genuine affection. They were healing each other, these two survivors of loss. Tomorrow Leah would join their strange little refugee camp. Tomorrow they would start figuring out what came next. The house would need massive repairs. There would be trials, testimony, media attention. The quiet life Noah had built was gone forever. But as Max laughed at something Atlas did as the sun set over the mountains painting the snow-covered peaks, gold, Noah felt something he hadn't experienced in the 4 years since Sarah's death. Hope. It was fragile and uncertain, complicated by trauma and violence, but it was there, a small flame that had been lit in the darkness of that morning's crisis. He thought about Leah's hand in his at the hospital, about the way Atlas had protected them all, about Max asking if Officer Leah could come live with them. Maybe sometimes life doesn't take things away. Maybe sometimes it just rearranges them into something different, something unexpected. Maybe a single dad and his son, a widowed cop, and a traumatized dog could find something together that none of them could find alone. The temperature was dropping again, another storm system moving in according to the weather report. But this time Noah wasn't worried. They had shelter, they had each other, and they had survived worse than whatever nature could throw at them. Atlas barked and Max giggled, and Noah felt the ice around his heart crack just a little more. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges. The investigation would continue, the media would descend, and they would all have to reckon with the violence that had erupted into their lives. But tonight they were safe. Tonight they were together, and for the first time in a long time that felt like enough. As he called Max and Atlas inside for dinner, Noah caught a glimpse of headlights turning into Jim's ranch. Another state police car probably checking on them. The protection would continue for weeks, maybe months. Price's network had been extensive, and while most were in custody, there could still be loyalists out there. Noah wasn't worried. He'd faced down worse odds in Afghanistan, and now he had even more reason to fight if necessary. Max deserved to grow up without fear. Atlas deserved peace after his trauma. And Leah deserved justice for Trevor, and a chance at something beyond grief and vengeance. Inside the small guest house, Max was chattering about how Atlas had caught a tennis ball in midair, demonstrating with enthusiastic gestures that sent the dog's tail wagging. Noah started preparing dinner with the supplies Margaret had stocked, simple food that would fill their bellies and warm their bones. "Dad," Max asked suddenly, "are we heroes?" Noah considered the question. They'd saved a life, exposed corruption, fought for truth, but at a cost measured in blood and trauma. "I don't know about heroes," he said carefully, "but we did the right thing when it mattered." "Atlas is definitely a hero," Max declared. "He protected us." "Yes," Noah agreed. "Atlas is definitely a hero." The dog seemed to understand he was being discussed and padded over to Noah, sitting at his feet with quiet dignity. Noah reached down and scratched behind his ears, feeling the dog lean into the touch. They ate dinner quietly, the events of the day settling over them like dust after an explosion. Max fell asleep on the couch watching cartoons, and Noah carried him to bed again, Atlas following. Standing in the doorway of the bedroom, watching his son sleep peacefully while Atlas kept watch, Noah made a decision. Whatever came next, whatever complications arose from the growing connection with Leah, whatever challenges the trials and rebuilding would bring, he would face them head on. He'd spent 4 years just surviving after Sarah's death, going through the motions of life without really living. Today had awakened something in him, not just the soldier who could fight and protect, but the man who could still care, still connect, still hope for something better. His phone lit up with a text from Leah. "Thank you for giving me something to fight for again." Noah typed back, "Thank you for reminding me that some fights are worth having." It wasn't poetry or grand declarations. It was just two damaged people recognizing something in each other, a possibility of healing that neither had expected to find. Outside, snow began to fall again, gentle this time, without the violence of the previous storm. Noah stood at the window, watching it blanket the world in fresh white, covering the tracks and scars of the day's events. Tomorrow the sun would rise on a changed world. But for now, in this small guest house with his son and their guardian dog Noah Reed, allowed himself to believe that change might not be something to fear. It might be exactly what they all needed. The morning Leah arrived at the ranch, she looked smaller. Somehow diminished by the institutional wheelchair the hospital insisted on using despite her protests that she could walk. Noah watched from the porch of the guest house as Margaret helped her from Jim's truck, fussing over her like a mother hen, while Leah tried to maintain some dignity in the face of such determined care. Atlas had been pacing since dawn, somehow knowing she was coming. The moment Leah's feet touched the ground, the dog bolted from Noah's side, covering the distance in seconds, but stopping just short of jumping on her, his whole body vibrating with restrained joy. "Hello, boy," Leah said softly, dropping to her knees despite Margaret's protests about taking it easy. Atlas pressed his head against her chest, and she wrapped her arms around him, burying her face in his fur. Noah could see her shoulders shaking and knew she was crying, releasing 2 years of grief into the dog who'd shared her loss. Max tugged on Noah's hand. "Should we go help?" "Let's give them a minute," Noah said, understanding that this reunion was about more than just a woman and a dog. It was about Trevor, about unfinished goodbyes, about a partner Atlas had thought he'd lost forever. When Leah finally stood, her eyes were red but clearer somehow, as if Atlas had absorbed some of her pain. She looked toward the guest house and found Noah watching, offering a small wave that he returned. "Come on," he told Max. "Let's go say hello." The second guest house was a mirror image of theirs 20 yards away across a snow-covered field. Jim had apologized for the proximity, saying it was all he had, but Noah found he didn't mind. After the isolation of the past 4 years, having someone close by who understood what they'd been through felt more comforting than intrusive. "Officer Leah." Max ran ahead, and Leah caught him in a careful hug, mindful of her still healing ribs. "Just Leah now," she said. "I'm on administrative leave pending the investigation." "Will you go back?" Noah asked. She looked out at the mountains, considering. "I don't know. Everything I did for the past 2 years was about getting justice for Trevor. Now that it's happening, I don't know what comes next." "That makes 2 of us," Noah admitted. Their eyes met and held for a moment before Max interrupted, asking if Leah wanted to see the trick he'd taught Atlas. As Max led them through an elaborate demonstration of Atlas playing dead, which the dog performed with theatrical flair, Noah found himself studying Leah in the morning light. The bandages were gone, replaced by a thin line of stitches along her hairline. The bruises had faded to yellow-green shadows, but it was her eyes that had changed the most, still carrying grief, but no longer consumed by it. "The FBI called this morning," she said while Max ran off to find more tennis balls. "They want me to testify before a grand jury next week. Are you ready for that?" "I've been ready for 2 years. It's everything after that I'm not prepared for." She paused, watching Atlas chase Max through the snow. "I've been living for one thing for so long, I don't remember how to just live." Noah understood that feeling intimately. After Sarah died after the funeral, and the condolences and the casseroles stopped coming, he'd stood in their empty house wondering what the point of getting up the next day was. Max had been that point, that reason to keep moving, even when every step felt like walking through quicksand. "It gets easier," he said. "Not better, necessarily, but easier. You find new rhythms, new reasons." "Is that what you did?" "I ran away," Noah said, with brutal honesty. "Sold our house in Denver, moved here where no one knew our story. Thought if I could just find somewhere quiet enough, the grief would stop echoing so loud." "Did it work?" "No. Turns out grief travels light. Doesn't need much room in the moving truck." Leah laughed, a sound that surprised them both. "Trevor would have liked you. He had a dark sense of humor about things. Said it was the only way to survive being a cop." "Sarah would have liked you too," Noah found himself saying. "She was drawn to fighters, people who didn't give up when things got hard." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Max try to convince Atlas to pull him on a sled, which the dog seemed to be seriously considering. "The media's been calling," Leah said eventually. "Wanting interviews about Price, about Trevor, about what happened at your house. I've been refusing, but they're persistent." "They've been calling me too. Reporter from Denver showed up at the hospital yesterday. Jim ran him off with a shotgun. Literally. Rock salt, but yeah. Jim doesn't mess around when it comes to protecting his neighbors. As if summoned by his name, Jim appeared on his own porch, calling them over for lunch. Margaret had made what appeared to be enough food for a small army, claiming she didn't know how to cook for less than a dozen after years of feeding ranch hands. The meal was warm and noisy, Max chattering about everything and nothing, while Atlas positioned himself strategically between chairs hoping for dropped food. It felt normal in a way that nothing had felt normal in days, and Noah caught Leah smiling genuinely for the first time since he'd met her. After lunch, while Max napped and Margaret cleaned up despite everyone's protests, Jim pulled Noah and Leah aside. "Had a visitor this morning," he said quietly. "Martin Wells's lawyer. Seems Wells wants to make a deal, testify against everyone in exchange for a lighter sentence." Leah's entire body went rigid. "He executed Trevor in cold blood." "I know," Jim said gently, "but the FBI seems interested. Apparently Wells knows where Price kept records of every dirty cop, judge, and politician he owned. Could bring down a lot more than just the Millbrook department." "I don't care," Leah said flatly. "He killed my husband. He looked me in the eye at the funeral, and—" She broke off, walking away toward the barn. Noah started to follow, but Jim caught his arm. Let her be for a minute. Sometimes a person needs to be angry without an audience. They watched her disappear into the barn, Atlas breaking away from Max's room to follow her. She's tough, Jim observed, but everybody's got a breaking point. She's past hers, Noah said. Has been for a while. She's just been running on vengeance and adrenaline. And now that those are running out, Noah didn't have an answer for that. He knew what his own crash had looked like after Sarah died, weeks where getting out of bed felt like climbing Everest, where Max's needs were the only thing that kept him functional. But Max didn't have that anchor to reality that demanded she keep moving. You like her, Jim said. It wasn't a question. It's complicated. Best things usually are. Jim clapped him on the shoulder. Just remember you've both been through trauma. Don't mistake intensity for intimacy. Give it time. Noah wanted to protest that there was nothing between them, but the words wouldn't come. There was something, had been, since the moment he'd pulled her from that crashed cruiser. Whether it was just shared survival or something deeper, he didn't know yet. An hour later, he found Leah in the barn sitting on a hay bale with Atlas's head in her lap. She'd been crying again, but her voice was steady when she spoke. Trevor would want me to let Wells testify. He'd say the greater good was more important than personal vengeance. What do you want? I want my husband back. I want those 2 years back. I want to not know what his blood looked like on a warehouse floor. She stroked Atlas's fur absently. But since I can't have any of that, I want to stop as many corrupt cops as possible, so Wells can have his deal. But I want to be there when he testifies. I want him to look at me while he describes murdering Trevor. That's a special kind of torture, for both of you. Good. He should suffer. Maybe not physically, but he should have to carry what he did. She looked up at Noah. Is that wrong to want him to hurt? It's human, Noah said, sitting beside her on the hay bale. After Sarah died, I used to dream about finding the drunk driver. Not to kill him, just to make him understand what he'd taken. Make him feel even a fraction of what I felt. Did you ever find him? No. He pled guilty, went to prison. Died there 6 months later. Another inmate killed him over a gambling debt. I thought I'd feel something when I heard satisfaction, closure, something, but it was just empty. He was gone, Sarah was still gone, and I still had to figure out how to raise Max alone. Leah leaned against his shoulder, a casual intimacy that should have felt strange but didn't. We're pretty fucked up, aren't we? Thoroughly, Noah agreed. But we're functional, that's something. Is it enough? It has to be. They sat there until the barn grew cold, Atlas sleeping peacefully across both their laps. Finally, Leah shivered, and Noah stood offering her his hand. Come on, Margaret threatened to teach Max how to make cookies. We should probably supervise. Noah, Leah said, not taking his hand yet. What happens when this is over? When the trials are done, and the media moves on, and we're just normal people again? I don't know about you, but I haven't been normal in years. You know what I mean? He did know. She was asking about them, about whether this connection forged in crisis could survive ordinary life. We figure it out as we go, he said. That's all anyone does. This time she took his hand, letting him pull her to her feet. They were close enough that he could see the flecks of gold in her green eyes, could smell the hospital shampoo still in her hair. I should tell you, she said quietly, I haven't been with anyone since Trevor. Haven't even thought about it. So if this is heading where I think it might be heading, I need you to know I'm going to be very bad at it. I haven't been with anyone since Sarah, Noah admitted. So that makes 2 of us who'll be bad at it. What a pair we make. Atlas barked from the barn door, apparently tired of their human complexity and ready for dinner. The moment broke, but something had shifted between them, an acknowledgement of possibility, if not promise. Walking back to the houses, they found Max and Margaret covered in flour cookies in various stages of disaster, covering every surface of the kitchen. We made snickerdoodles, Max announced proudly, holding up something that might charitably be called cookie adjacent. They're unique, Leah said diplomatically. Atlas will eat them, Max said confidently. He eats everything. As if to prove the point, Atlas immediately vacuumed up a dropped cookie tail, wagging enthusiastically. The evening passed in domestic chaos, cleaning the kitchen, attempting to salvage the least burnt cookies, Max insisting on movie night, and falling asleep 20 minutes in. Noah carried him to bed while Leah cleaned up the living room, and when he came back, she was standing at the window watching snow fall again. "It's so quiet here," she said. "After 2 years of looking over my shoulder, jumping at every sound, the quiet feels strange. It takes getting used to. The first few weeks after we moved here, I couldn't sleep. Too used to city noise, sirens, traffic. Now I can't imagine living anywhere else. Even after everything that happened. Especially after. This place, these people, they showed up when it mattered. That's rare." Leah turned from the window. "You showed up when it mattered. So did you. That shot that stopped Price, most people couldn't have made that with a concussion. I told you I'd been practicing it for 2 years." She paused. "Though I always imagined I'd feel different after, vindicated or satisfied or something. Instead, I just feel tired. That's the adrenaline crash. It'll pass. And then what? Then you start rebuilding, one day at a time, one choice at a time. Is that what you did?" After Sarah, Noah considered the question. "I thought I was rebuilding. Now I think maybe I was just building walls. It took almost dying to realize the difference. And now I'm trying to figure out how to tear them down without the whole thing collapsing." Leah moved closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth of her. "Maybe you don't tear them down. Maybe you just build a door. That's very philosophical for someone with a head injury." "I have my moments." She reached up, fingers ghosting over the cut on his cheek from the flying glass. "This is going to scar." "Add it to the collection." Trevor had scars, one on his shoulder from his first dog who bit him during training, one on his palm from trying to fix a fence and failing spectacularly, one through his eyebrow from a bar fight in college. He'd never fully explain. Her voice caught. "I used to know every mark on his body, every story. Now someone else will have to learn yours." "Leah, I'm not ready," she said quickly. "I need you to know that. I'm not ready for whatever this is becoming, but I also can't seem to stop it. We don't have to figure it out tonight, or tomorrow, or next week. But eventually, yeah. Eventually we'll have to decide if this is just trauma bonding or something more." "What do you think it is?" Noah was saved from answering by Atlas pawing at the door, needing his evening constitutional. They went out together, watching the dog bound through the fresh snow with pure joy, and the moment of intense intimacy dissolved into something easier, lighter. "I should go," Leah said when Atlas was done. "It's getting late and Max will be up early." "He always is." Noah agreed, though part of him wanted her to stay to continue this careful dance they'd started. At the door to her guest house, Leah paused. "The grand jury testimony is Thursday. Would you come with me? I know it's a lot to ask, but..." "I'll be there," Noah said without hesitation. "You don't even know what time..." "Doesn't matter. I'll be there." She stood on her toes and kissed his cheek, a brief touch that left him frozen in place. "Thank you. For everything. For saving my life, for fighting for me, for giving me space to figure this out." Before he could respond, she was inside the door, closing softly between them. Atlas whined clearly, wanting to follow her, torn between his old loyalty and his new family. "I know, boy," Noah said. "It's complicated." Back in their guest house, Noah checked on Max, who was sprawled across the bed like a starfish, then sat in the living room with a cup of coffee that would guarantee he wouldn't sleep. His phone showed 17 missed calls from various media outlets, 3 from his former unit buddies who'd heard about the shooting, and 1 from Detective Harrison that he should probably return. Instead, he sat in the dark, processing the day. Leah's presence had shifted something fundamental in their strange little refuge. She fit somehow into the rhythms they'd established. Max had taken to her immediately, Atlas was devoted, and Noah was feeling things he'd convinced himself he'd never feel again. Jim was right about not confusing intensity for intimacy. Everything about their connection had been forged in extremity, violence, fear, survival. But underneath that was something else, something that might exist even without the crisis. A recognition, maybe. 2 people who'd lost everything and were trying to figure out how to live anyway. His phone buzzed with a text from Leah. Can't sleep, keep thinking about Thursday. He typed back, want company? I have coffee and Margaret's least burnt cookies. Give me 5 minutes. She appeared at his door in pajamas and a heavy coat, looking younger and more vulnerable than he'd seen her. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between them feeling both vast and insignificant. Tell me about Sarah, she said. Not how she died. Tell me how she lived. So Noah did. He told her about the nurse who'd treated his broken arm at the VA hospital and then asked him out while he was still loopy on pain meds. About her terrible cooking and beautiful singing voice, about her dedication to her patients and her fierce love for Max. About Sunday morning pancakes and evening walks, and the way she'd made him feel whole after coming back from War and Pieces. In return, Leah told him about Trevor, about the rookie cop who'd brought her flowers after their first date, and then accidentally set them on fire trying to cook dinner. About his dedication to his K-9 partners, his terrible jokes, his secret addiction to reality TV. About how he'd held her after her miscarriage, how they'd been trying for another baby when he was killed. They talked until dawn, sharing their ghosts, and when Max wandered out demanding breakfast, he didn't seem surprised to find Leah there. Are you living with us now? He asked with a child's directness. Nobody, Noah said. Leah just couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep either, Max said. I dreamed about the bad men again. Noah's heart clenched. He'd hoped Max would escape trauma from the shooting, but of course, that was naive. Come here, Leah said, and Max climbed into her lap without hesitation. You know what I dream about bad men too sometimes, but you know what helps? What? Remembering that the bad men lost. Your dad stopped them. Atlas stopped them. They can't hurt anyone anymore. But what if there are more bad men? Then we'll stop them too, Leah said simply. That's what we do. We protect each other. Max seemed to consider this, then nodded. Okay, can we have pancakes? The domestic scene that followed Noah cooking while Leah helped Max set the table. Atlas supervising everything felt both surreal and completely natural, like puzzle pieces that shouldn't fit but somehow did. After breakfast, the spell was broken by the arrival of Agent Chen with a team of FBI agents who needed to go through everything again preparing for the grand jury. Noah took Max to Jim's house while Leah endured hours of questions, document reviews, and strategic planning. When she finally emerged, she looked exhausted but determined. They think they can get indictments on 23 people, she told Noah. Not just cops, judges, city councilmen, even a state senator. Price's network was that extensive. He had 10 years to build it. Trevor stumbled onto something huge. He just didn't live long enough to understand how huge. But you did. I had time and rage. Amazing what you can accomplish with those. Wednesday passed in a blur of preparation. Leah spent most of it with the FBI while Noah tried to maintain normalcy for Max. They visited their damaged house, seeing it in daylight for the first time since the shooting. The violence done to it was shocking. Walls riddled with bullet holes, windows boarded up, bloodstains on the floor, despite the crime scene cleaners' efforts. We can't live here again, can we? Max asked quietly. Not for a while, Noah admitted. Maybe not ever. How would you feel about that? Max considered. Sad, I guess, but also okay. The bad memories are bigger than the good ones now. Out of the mouths of babes, Noah thought. That was exactly how he felt about the house. Whatever piece they'd found here had been shattered beyond repair. That evening, Jim made an unexpected offer. Been thinking, he said over dinner. Got that old foreman's house on the south corner of the property. Been empty for years, but it's solid. Needs work, but it's bigger than what you had. You're welcome to it if you want. Could make it yours. Jim, I couldn't. Not charity, Jim interrupted. I need someone I trust on that corner. Been having trouble with kids using the old logging road to party. You'd be doing me a favor. Noah knew it was more than that, but also recognized the pride-saving fiction for what it was. I'd need to see it first, make sure it's safe for Max. Of course, tomorrow, after... Jim glanced at Leah. After you're done with your testimony. Thursday arrived gray and cold, matching everyone's mood. Noah put on his only suit, the one he'd bought for Sarah's funeral, while Max insisted on wearing his clip-on tie to look professional for Officer Leah. The federal courthouse in Denver was a circus of media vans and protesters. Some carried signs supporting police, others demanding justice for corruption. Leah sat between Noah and Max in the back of the FBI sedan, her hands clenched so tight her knuckles were white. "You've got this," Noah said quietly. "What if I forget something? What if I say the wrong thing?" "You won't. You know this case better than anyone. Trevor should be here. He should be the one testifying. But he's not. So you speak for him. You be his voice." Leah took a shaky breath and nodded. When they arrived, she squeezed Noah's hand once before disappearing into the courthouse with Agent Chen. The wait was excruciating. Max did homework. Jim had picked up from his school. Atlas paced restlessly, and Noah tried not to think about what Leah was facing inside. Grand jury testimony was secret, no observers allowed, just Leah alone with strangers deciding whether her 2 years of work was enough. 3 hours later, she emerged looking drained but relieved. She couldn't talk about the testimony, but Agent Chen's satisfied expression said enough. "We got them," Chen said simply. "Indictments will be unsealed tomorrow. It's going to be big." In the car back to Millbrook, Leah finally broke down. Not the desperate sobs of grief, but tears of relief of completion. Max climbed into the back seat with her, offering her his favorite stuffed dinosaur for comfort, which made her cry harder. "It's okay," Max said solemnly. "Sometimes you need to cry out all the sad so there's room for happy again." "Where did you learn that?" Noah asked. "Mom told me. When Grandma died." Even from beyond, Sarah was still teaching them. That evening they looked at the foreman's house Jim had offered. It was rough, needed a new roof, new windows, complete interior renovation. But it had good bones, as Jim said, and it sat on a rise with a view of the mountains that took Noah's breath away. "What do you think?" he asked Max. "It's big," Max said, then looked at Leah. "Big enough for all of us." "Max," Noah started. "What Atlas needs, a big yard. And Leah's house is sad. She said so." The adults exchanged glances over his head. "We'll see." Noah said the parental non-answer that covered all possibilities. But that night, as he tucked Max into bed, his son had more questions. "Is Leah our family now?" "It's complicated, buddy." "Why?" "Because," Noah struggled for words, "because when people have been hurt, it takes time to trust again, to believe that good things can happen." "But good things are happening. We're all together. Atlas is happy, the bad men are going to jail. You're right, good things are happening. So Leah can be family. Maybe, if she wants to be, if we're all ready for that." Max seemed satisfied with that and fell asleep quickly. Noah found Leah sitting on her porch, despite the cold, wrapped in a blanket, Atlas at her feet. "Big day," he said, sitting beside her. "The biggest. I thought I'd feel different, complete maybe, but I just feel empty." "That's normal. You've been running on purpose for 2 years. Now that purpose is fulfilled. So what do I do now?" "Whatever you want. That's the gift and the curse of surviving. You have to choose what comes next." "What if I choose wrong?" "Then you choose again. That's all life is, Leah. A series of choices and course corrections." She leaned into him, and he put his arm around her, pulling her close. They sat like that, watching stars appear between clouds, while Atlas snored softly at their feet. "Max wants you to live with us," Noah said eventually. "Max is 7. 7-year-olds can be pretty wise." "What do you want?" Noah thought about it, about the risk of letting someone in again, about the possibility of loss, about the fear that had kept him isolated for 4 years. "I want to stop being afraid of wanting things," he said finally. "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have right now." Leah lifted her head to look at him. "I'm not ready to replace Trevor. I may never be ready for that. And I'm not looking to replace Sarah. But maybe we're not replacing. Maybe we're just adding." "Adding," she repeated, testing the word. "I think Trevor would like that. He always said I needed more people in my life." Sarah would probably say the same about me. They were quiet for a moment, both consulting their ghosts. "So we try?" Leah asked, slowly, carefully, with no promises except to be honest. We try, Noah agreed. She kissed him, then soft and tentative. Nothing like the passion born of crisis kisses he'd imagined. It was a beginning fragile and uncertain, but real. Atlas's tail thumped against the porch boards, apparently approving. When they pulled apart, Leah was smiling. So about this house Jim offered. It needs everything. New roof, new plumbing, complete renovation. It would take months. I'm good with a hammer, and I've got nothing but time now. You'd help? Noah. I've been alone for 2 years, living 20 yards away from you and Max these past few days. It's the first time I haven't felt like I was drowning. So yeah, I'd help. If you'll have me, Max will be thrilled. What about Max's dad? Noah looked at her, this woman who'd crashed into their lives in blood and violence and somehow brought light with her. Max's dad is learning that sometimes the best things come from the worst circumstances. That's either very profound or very naive. Maybe both. They stayed on the porch until the cold drove them inside, planning renovations and imagining a future neither had expected. It wasn't the life Noah had planned, wasn't the happily ever after he'd had with Sarah, but it was something. A second chance, complicated and messy and uncertain, but theirs to build. The indictments made national news the next morning. Noah woke to his phone buzzing with calls from reporters, old army buddies, and numbers he didn't recognize. 23 arrests before dawn, including 2 judges and a state senator whose connection to Price's network sent shockwaves through Colorado politics. The footage of Deputy Chief Wells being led away in handcuffs played on every channel, his face hidden, but his shame visible in every step. Leah stood in front of the television at Jim's house, watching it all unfold with an expression Noah couldn't read. Max was at the kitchen table, carefully not watching, focused on his cereal, as if it required all his concentration. They got them all, Leah said quietly. Every single name I gave them. That's good, right? Max asked, though he didn't look up from his bowl. It's what needed to happen, Leah replied, which wasn't quite the same as good. Margaret bustled in with fresh coffee and the determined cheer of someone trying to normalize the abnormal. Well, I for one am glad it's over. This town can start healing now. But it wasn't over. Not really. The trials would take months, maybe years. Leah would testify again and again, reliving Trevor's death each time. And somewhere in all of that, they had to figure out how to build something new from the wreckage. Jim appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. There's a crowd at the gate. Reporters mostly, but some locals too. Seems the whole town wants to talk to you both. We're not talking to anyone, Noah said firmly. Figured as much. I've got some hands blocking the drive, but you might want to stay close to the property for a few days until this dies down. Max's face fell. But I'm supposed to go back to school Monday. The adults exchanged glances. They'd all been so focused on the immediate crisis that the return to normal life hadn't been fully considered. We'll figure it out, buddy, Noah promised, though he had no idea how. The weekend passed in a strange bubble of isolation. Reporters camped outside Jim's gate, while inside the property they tried to pretend life was normal. Noah and Leah spent Saturday at the foreman's house with Jim, making lists of everything that needed fixing. The list was long and expensive, but Jim waved off concerns about cost. Insurance money from your old place will cover most of it, he said, and I know contractors who owe me favors. We can make this work. Sunday morning, Leah disappeared. Noah found her an hour later at the small cemetery on the hill behind Jim's property, standing in front of a headstone he hadn't known was there. Jim's son, she said when he approached. Died in Iraq, 2007. Noah read the stone. Timothy James Brennan, beloved son, American hero. The dates made him 22 when he died. Jim never mentions him, Noah said. Neither do you mention Sarah most days. Doesn't mean you're not thinking about her. Leah touched the stone gently. I came here to ask him something. Ask who? Trevor, Timothy, Sarah. All of them. She turned to face Noah. I wanted to know if it was okay. If moving on was a betrayal. What did they say? Nothing. The dead don't talk. But standing here thinking about Jim and Margaret going on building a life around the hole their son left, I think maybe that's the answer. You don't fill the hole. You just build around it. Noah took her hand. Max asked me this morning if you were going to marry us. What did you tell him? That we're taking things slow. And what did he say to that? That slow was boring and we were too old to waste time. Leah laughed a real laugh that echoed off the hills. Kid's got a point. How much time do any of us really have? Leah. I'm not saying we should get married tomorrow. I'm just saying maybe slow isn't always the answer. Maybe sometimes you just jump and figure out the landing as you fall. Before Noah could respond, Atlas came crashing through the underbrush barking urgently. They followed him back to find Max standing with Agent Chen and another FBI agent Noah didn't recognize. We have a problem, Chen said without preamble. Wells is dead. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Leah went very still. How? She asked, her voice carefully controlled. Official cause is suicide. Hung himself in his cell last night, but... Chen paused, choosing her words carefully. There are questions. The cameras malfunctioned. The guard who was supposed to be watching him took an unexplained break. Someone killed him, Noah said flatly. That's the working theory, which means Price's network is deeper than we thought. And if they could get to Wells in federal custody... She didn't need to finish. If they could kill Wells in a federal facility, getting to Leah would be child's play. We want to put you in witness protection, Chen continued. All of you. New identities, new location, complete, fresh start. No. Leah's response was immediate and fierce. I'm done running, done hiding. If they want to come for me, let them come. Leah, be reasonable. I've been reasonable for 2 years. I've been careful and smart and strategic. And you know what? People are still dead. Trevor's still dead. Now Wells is dead. Running won't change that. But it might keep you alive, Chen argued. That's not living, that's just existing. Leah looked at Noah. Tell them. Tell them what it's like to live in fear, to lose yourself trying to stay safe. Noah thought about the 4 years since Sarah's death, the walls he'd built, the life he'd narrowed down to just survival. She's right. Safety isn't living. It's just a slower kind of dying. Chen looked frustrated. So what, you're just going to stay here and wait for someone to take another shot at you? We're going to live our lives, Noah said. We're going to rebuild. We're going to raise Max. We're going to do all the things that Price and his people tried to stop us from doing. That's brave, Mr. Reed. It's also potentially fatal. Everything's potentially fatal, Leah said. Trevor taught me that. He was the most careful cop I knew, and he still died. So if I'm going to die anyway, I'd rather do it living my life than hiding from it. Chen studied them both for a long moment. The FBI can't officially endorse this decision. But, Noah heard the unspoken word. But unofficially, I understand it. We'll maintain surveillance, keep protective details close. But if you're staying, you need to be smart about it. She left them with new phones, panic buttons, and a direct line to the FBI field office. After she was gone, Noah found Max hidden behind the couch, having heard everything. Are the bad men coming back? Max asked, his voice small. Noah pulled his son into his arms. Maybe. But we'll be ready if they do. I don't want anyone else to die. Neither do I, buddy. Neither do I. That evening, Jim called a meeting. Not just them, but Margaret, several of the ranch hands, and surprisingly, a dozen people from town. They gathered in Jim's large living room, the atmosphere tense. Here's the situation, Jim said bluntly. The FBI thinks there might be more trouble coming. They want our friends here to run. They're choosing to stay. Question is, what are we going to do about it? Why should we risk ourselves for outsiders? Someone asked from the back. Because they already risked themselves for us. An older woman Noah recognized from the grocery store said firmly. That girl brought down corruption that was poisoning this town for years. The least we can do is stand by her now. My nephew was arrested because of her, another man said angrily. Good boy led astray by Price. Your nephew was dealing meth to high schoolers, Jim interrupted. Don't rewrite history now that it's inconvenient. The room erupted in arguments, neighbors turning on each other, years of suppressed tensions boiling over. Noah was about to suggest they leave when Leah stood up. You want someone to blame, she said, her voice cutting through the noise. Blame me. I couldn't save my husband. I couldn't stop Price before he corrupted half this town. I brought violence to Noah's door and got his son traumatized. You want to hate me for that, fine. But don't pretend Price was anything other than what he was, a cancer that was killing this town slowly. The room fell silent. Then unexpectedly, Max stood up beside her. Officer Leah saved us, he said in his clear child's voice. She got hurt protecting people. That makes her a hero. My dad says we should always stand by heroes even when it's scary. Noah had never said exactly that, but he wasn't about to contradict his son. The room's mood shifted, shame replacing anger on several faces. The boy's right, said Tom Baker, who ran the hardware store. We let fear keep us silent for years. Maybe it's time we found our courage. One by one, people started volunteering. Someone would watch the roads leading to Jim's ranch. Someone else would install security cameras. The grocery store would deliver supplies so they wouldn't have to go to town. It wasn't everyone. Some people left unwilling to get involved, but those who stayed seemed determined. After everyone left, Jim pulled Noah aside. Tom's brother is a contractor. He can start on the house tomorrow if you want. Having workers around might discourage anyone from trying something. Jim, I can't keep taking. You're not taking, you're receiving. There's a difference. This community failed Leah when Trevor died. We all knew something was wrong, but we were too scared to act. This is our chance to make that right. Monday morning arrived with contractors just as Jim promised. Noah expected maybe a small crew, but dozens of people showed up. Not just professionals, but volunteers from town people with hammers and good intentions, if not much skill. Word spread, Tom Baker explained. People want to help. Leah stood watching the crowd swarm the old foreman's house, tears streaming down her face. Trevor would have loved this, she said. He always believed in community, even when I'd lost faith in it. Max, who was supposed to start back at school, refused to leave. What if something happens while I'm gone? Nothing's going to happen, Noah assured him, though he wasn't entirely certain himself. You don't know that. Noah knelt to his son's level. You're right, I don't. But I know that we can't stop living because we're afraid. That's what Mom would say, isn't she? Max considered this, then nodded slowly. She'd say fear is just your brain trying to keep you safe, but sometimes your brain worries too much. Exactly. But what if the other kids ask about what happened? Tell them the truth, that you were brave, that you protected your family, that you're a hero just like Leah said. Max straightened a little at that. Atlas is coming with me, right? They'd arranged with the school for Atlas to accompany Max as an emotional support animal, at least temporarily. The principal, Mrs. Henderson, had been understanding, especially after the story made national news. The drive to school was tense, Noah constantly checking mirrors, but they arrived without incident. Max hugged Atlas goodbye at the classroom door. The dog had to stay in the office during actual class time and walked in with his head high. He's tougher than he should have to be, Leah observed. Kids are resilient. It's adults who carry things forever. Speaking from experience, aren't we both? They spent the day at the house, Noah working alongside the contractors while Leah coordinated supplies and managed volunteers. It should have felt strange building a home together when they'd known each other less than 2 weeks, but instead it felt right. Natural, even. You know, Tom Baker said during a water break, my wife thinks you two are moving too fast. Your wife is probably right, Noah admitted. But sometimes life doesn't give you the luxury of time. Sometimes you have to take the happiness you find, even if the timing is all wrong. That why you stayed? Even knowing there might be trouble? Noah watched Leah explaining something to a volunteer, her hands moving animatedly. Atlas never more than a few feet from her side. We stayed because this is home. This is where we're building something. You don't abandon that because things get difficult. Tom nodded slowly. Takes courage choosing to stay and fight. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing. By the time they picked Max up from school, the house had a new roof and half the windows had been replaced. Max chattered excitedly about his day. Apparently being the kid who'd survived a shootout with corrupt cops gave him serious playground credibility. Jason Miller says his dad says you're a hero, Max told Noah. I said you were just my dad, but you were really good at protecting people. That's a good answer, buddy. Leah Susie wants to know if you still have your police badge. I told her you were on special leave. That's right, isn't it? Close enough, Leah said, smiling. They were almost to Jim's ranch when Atlas started growling. Noah's hands tightened on the steering wheel as he spotted the vehicle parked at the gate, a black SUV with government plates. It's okay, Leah said, recognizing it. That's Agent Chen's car. Chen was waiting with news that was both good and bad. The good, they'd traced the payment for Wells's murder to an account linked to the cartel Price had been working with. The bad, the cartel was known for not leaving loose ends. They might come after me, Leah asked. It's possible. You're the star witness. Without you, the cases against a lot of these people fall apart. So we're back to witness protection. The offer stands, but Chen paused. There's another option. The cartel is a business. They care about profit, not revenge. If the cost of coming after you exceeds the benefit, they'll write it off as a loss. What are you saying? I'm saying make it too expensive to come after you. Too public, too protected, too much heat. How? Chen smiled slightly. By doing exactly what you're already doing. Building a life very publicly. The media attention, the community support. It all makes you a hard target. Kill you now, and it's a national story. Federal resources would rain down on them. It's not worth it. So we just live and hope that's enough. Sometimes the best defense is refusing to hide. After Chen left, they sat around Jim's dinner table, the weight of the situation settling over them. Maybe we should reconsider, Noah said quietly. Max's safety. Dad, no. Max interrupted. We're not running away. Heroes don't run away. Max, this isn't a movie. I know it's real and scary and people could get hurt, but we're a family now, aren't we? Families stick together. When did you get so wise? Leah asked, ruffling his hair. Tuesdays, Max said seriously, making everyone laugh despite the tension. That night, Noah couldn't sleep. He found himself at the construction site, walking through the skeletal frame of what would be their home. The living room where Max would play. The kitchen where they'd make meals together. The bedroom where maybe eventually he and Leah would build something deeper than their current careful dance. Couldn't sleep either. Leah appeared beside him, Atlas at her side. Thinking about the future. Dangerous habit. Someone has to. She slipped her hand into his. I've been thinking about Trevor. What he'd say about all this. And he'd say I was crazy. Moving in with a man I barely know, putting myself and a child at risk, building a life on the ashes of tragedy. But he'd also understand. He always said life was about the choices you make in the moment that matters. And in the moment that mattered, you chose to save me. Everything else is just details. They stood in what would be their kitchen, moonlight streaming through the newly installed windows. Noah pulled her close, and she rested her head against his chest. I'm scared, she admitted quietly. Me too. What if we're making a mistake? What if we're moving too fast? What if the cartel comes? What if... Noah silenced her with a kiss, soft and certain. What if we're exactly where we're supposed to be? That's terrifyingly optimistic. I'm trying something new. Atlas barked softly, alerting them to Jim's approach. The older man carried a lantern and a concerned expression. Thought I might find you here. Can't sleep when there's trouble brewing either. He set the lantern down, casting dancing shadows on the unfinished walls. You know, when Timothy died, I wanted to burn this whole place down. Couldn't stand the thought of going on without him. What changed? Leah asked. Margaret. She said Timothy didn't die so we could stop living. He died doing something he believed in, and the best way to honor that was to keep believing in something ourselves. What do you believe in? Noah asked. Jim looked around the construction site. Second chances, community, the possibility that good people doing right can overcome bad people doing wrong. Maybe that's naive at my age, but it's better than the alternative. A coyote howled in the distance, and Atlas tensed but didn't bark. The workers will be back at dawn, Jim said. By end of week, you'll have a livable house. Question is, what kind of life are you going to build in it? After he left, Noah and Leah remained planning and dreaming despite the uncertainty. They talked about paint colors and furniture placement, about Max's room and Atlas's dog door, about a future that might never come but was worth imagining anyway. Tuesday brought more progress on the house and a surprise visitor. Detective Harrison arrived with news that Wells had left behind a confession, hidden in his cell, detailing everything Trevor's murder Price's network names and dates and brutal truths. He knew someone would come for him, Harrison explained. Wanted to get it all down first.
Does it help the case? Leah asked. It guarantees convictions. Even without your testimony, though, we still need you. But, Leah, there's something else. Wells wrote about Trevor specifically, about his last words. Leah tensed. Tell me. He said to tell you he loved you, that you were his light, and to take care of Atlas. Leah broke down, then sobbing in a way she hadn't since this all began. Noah held her while she cried. Max hugged her legs, and Atlas pressed against her, offering comfort, the way only dogs can. He knew, she gasped between sobs. Even dying, he was thinking about me, about Atlas. That's love, Noah said simply. Real love thinks about others even in the worst moments. Max looked up at them with those two wise eyes. Is that why you protected us? Because of love? Noah considered his son's question. He'd acted on instinct training moral obligation. But underneath all that? Yeah, buddy. Everything we do for each other, it's because of love. Even when we're scared. Especially when we're scared. The week progressed with startling normalcy. School runs construction work community dinners at gyms. The threat of cartel retaliation hung over everything, but life insisted on continuing. Max made friends with the Baker boys who thought having a dad who'd fought off corrupt cops was the coolest thing ever. Leah started helping Margaret with her charity work, finding purpose beyond her pursuit of justice. Atlas adapted to his new role as Max's protector and Leah's emotional anchor with remarkable grace. Friday afternoon, the house was officially habitable. Basics still needing finish work, but with functioning plumbing, electricity, and heating. They stood in the empty living room, their voices echoing off bare walls. When do we move in? Max asked, bouncing with excitement. We need furniture first, Noah pointed out. I have furniture, Leah said quietly. In storage, from the house Trevor and I shared. I haven't been able to, but maybe it's time. Are you sure? Trevor wouldn't want it gathering dust. He'd want it being used, being part of a home again. They retrieved her belongings that afternoon. It was strange integrating pieces of her past life into their potential future. Trevor's recliner that Atlas immediately claimed. The kitchen table where she and Trevor had shared meals. Photos that would hang beside photos of Sarah, creating a blended history of love and loss. This is weird, Max announced, looking at a picture of Trevor in his police uniform. Why's that Buddy? Because he's dead, but he's still here. Like Mom. They're both still here even though they're gone. That's not weird, Leah said gently. That's family. Family includes everyone we've loved, even the ones we've lost. So Trevor is family and Mom. If you're okay with that, Max considered seriously. Atlas loved Trevor, and Atlas is really smart. So Trevor must be good family. And Mom already is family, so yeah, okay. The simplicity of childhood acceptance made the adults' eyes water. That night, their first in the new house, they camped in the living room, sleeping bags on the floor, Atlas sprawled between them, Max insisting it was the best adventure ever. The house creaked and settled around them, finding its rhythm with new occupants. Are you happy? Max asked into the darkness. Yes. Noah answered, surprised to find it was true. Me too, Leah said softly. Me 3, Max said. And Atlas is 4, but he's asleep. They lay there listening to the dogs snoring, to the wind outside, to the sound of their own breathing synchronizing. It wasn't the life any of them had planned. It was born from tragedy, built on loss, shadowed by threat. But it was theirs. I love you guys, Max said sleepily. Love you too, buddy, Noah replied. Leah's hand found Noah's in the darkness, squeezing gently. She didn't say the words too soon, too complicated, but the sentiment was there in the touch. Saturday morning brought news from Agent Chen. 3 cartel members had been arrested trying to cross into Colorado. The threat wasn't over, but it had been diminished. They're pulling back, Chen explained. Cost-benefit analysis. You're too protected, too visible. It's not worth the resources.
So we won. You survived. Sometimes that's the same thing. The weekend was spent settling in properly. Jim and Margaret helped arrange furniture, Tom Baker's kids helped paint Max's room, and half the town seemed to drop by with housewarming gifts. It was overwhelming and beautiful, this community, that had finally found its courage. Sunday evening, as they sat on the newly built porch watching the sunset, Max asked the question Noah had been dreading. "Are you and Leah going to get married?" Noah and Leah exchanged glances. "Maybe someday," Leah answered carefully. When we're ready." "How will you know when you're ready?" It was Noah who answered. "When the idea of forever doesn't seem scary anymore." "Is it scary now?" "A little," Noah admitted. "Why?" "Because we've both lost people we thought we'd have forever with. It's hard to believe in forever again." Max digested this with unusual gravity. But isn't it better to try for forever and maybe lose it than to not try at all? Out of the mouths of babes once again. "You're absolutely right," Leah said, looking at Noah with something that might have been hope. That night after Max was asleep, Noah and Leah sat on the porch with Atlas between them, not talking, just existing in comfortable silence. The stars were brilliant above them, the mountains dark shadows against the sky. "I'm not ready for forever," Leah said eventually, "but I'm ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow's a good start. And the day after that, we'll figure it out when we get there." She moved closer and he put his arm around her, pulling her against his side. Atlas's tail thumped approval. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For saving me. For fighting for me. For giving me a reason to keep going when justice wasn't enough anymore. You gave us the same thing. Max and I were just existing before you crashed into our lives." "Literally crashed? Best car accident ever." She laughed, the sound carrying across the quiet land. Somewhere in the distance a coyote howled, but Atlas didn't even raise his head. He was home. They all were in this unlikely configuration of souls who'd found each other in the darkness. The next morning would bring new challenges. The trials would start soon, requiring Leah to relive trauma repeatedly. Max would need therapy to process what he'd witnessed. Noah would have to reconcile the peaceful life he'd wanted with the violence he'd been capable of. They'd all have to learn to trust in permanence again. But that was tomorrow's worry. Tonight they had this a house becoming a home, a family forged in crisis, a future uncertain but no longer unbearable. The ghosts of Trevor and Sarah would always be with them, woven into the fabric of who they were becoming. But maybe that was okay. Maybe love wasn't about replacing what was lost, but about having the courage to add to it. Atlas shifted, laying his head on Leah's lap, while keeping his body pressed against Noah's leg, physically connecting them. It was, Noah thought, a perfect metaphor for what they were building, connections that bridged past and present loss and hope, fear and love. "I think we're going to be okay," Leah said, as if reading his thoughts. "Yeah," Noah agreed. "I think we are." And for the first time in years, he actually believed it. 6 months later, the first snow of winter began falling as Noah stood in the courthouse hallway watching Leah through the small window in the door. She was on the witness stand again, the 5th trial, her voice steady as she recounted Trevor's murder for what felt like the 100th time. Each telling scraped away another piece of her, but she never wavered, never let them see how much it cost her. Max sat beside Noah on the bench doing homework with Atlas at his feet. They'd become fixtures at the courthouse, a strange little support system that showed up for every testimony. The security guards knew them by name, now always had a dog treat ready for Atlas. "Is she almost done?" Max asked, not looking up from his math worksheet. "Almost, buddy. This is the last one for this week." "Good. She's tired. Atlas knows he's been extra careful with her." Noah looked down at the German Shepherd, who was indeed watching the door with unusual intensity, ready to comfort Leah the moment she emerged. The dog had become even more attuned to her emotional state over the months, often knowing she needed support before she did. The door opened and Leah walked out, her professional mask firmly in place until she saw them. Then her shoulders sagged slightly, the only sign of her exhaustion. Noah stood and she walked straight into his arms, not caring who saw. The courthouse staff had gotten used to these moments too, the star witness seeking comfort from the man who'd saved her life.
How bad was it? Noah asked quietly. They brought photos this time. Of the warehouse. Of Trevor. Noah held her tighter. The defense attorneys had gotten more aggressive as the trials progressed, trying to break her to find inconsistencies in her testimony. But Leah had spent 2 years memorizing every detail. Her story never changed because it was the truth. "Can we go home?" Max asked, and the simple question, the way he said home, so naturally seemed to ground Leah. "Yeah," she said, pulling back from Noah to ruffle Max's hair. "Let's go home." The drive back to Millbrook was quiet snow falling heavier as they climbed into the mountains. The house Jim had helped them rebuild stood warm and welcoming, smoke rising from the chimney where Noah had left a fire burning. It looked like something from a Christmas card, peaceful and perfect, no sign of the violence that had brought them together. Inside, the transformation was complete. What had been an abandoned foreman's house was now unmistakably a home. Max's artwork covered the refrigerator. Leah's law enforcement commendations hung next to Noah's military medals. Photos covered the mantel. Sarah and Noah on their wedding day, Trevor and Leah at their academy graduation, Max's school pictures and new ones of all of them together, Atlas always prominently featured. "I'll make dinner," Noah offered, but Leah shook her head. "I need to do something normal. Let me cook." She'd been doing that more lately, needing routine tasks to ground herself after testimonies. Noah understood. After particularly bad days in Afghanistan, he'd needed the same thing, something mundane and life-affirming, to remind him the whole world wasn't violence and loss. While Leah cooked, Noah helped Max with his homework. Atlas sprawled between them like a furry rug. These quiet domestic moments had become precious proof that they'd built something real from the ashes of their trauma. "Dad," Max said suddenly, "Ms. Henderson wants to know if you'll talk to the class about Veterans Day." I don't know, buddy." "Please, Jason's dad is talking about being in the Navy, and Susie's grandpa is talking about Vietnam. I want you to come too." Noah had spent years avoiding talking about his service, but looking at Max's hopeful face, he found himself nodding. "Okay, but I'm not wearing my dress uniform." "Deal." Max grinned, then added more quietly, "Maybe Leah could come too. She's kind of a veteran too, right? A police veteran." "You'd have to ask her." "Ask me what?" Leah called from the kitchen. Max bounded over to explain, and Noah watched Leah's face soften as she listened. She'd been suspended from the force pending the outcome of all the trial's standard procedure, but it ate at her. Being called a police veteran by a 7-year-old clearly meant something. "I'd be honored," she told Max, who whooped and ran to tell Atlas the good news as if the dog would understand. Dinner was quiet, comfortable. They'd developed their own rhythms over the months, Max chattering about school, Noah and Leah sharing looks over his head, Atlas patiently waiting for someone to drop food. It was beautifully ordinary, which made it extraordinary, given where they'd all started. After Max went to bed, Noah found Leah on the porch, despite the cold, watching the snow fall. It had become her thinking spot, the place she went when the weight of everything pressed too hard. 3 more trials, she said as he joined her. 3 more times I have to look at crime scene photos and pretend Trevor's death is just evidence instead of the worst day of my life. You don't have to pretend anything. You just have to tell the truth. The truth. She laughed bitterly. The truth is I'm tired, Noah. Tired of being strong, tired of being the perfect witness, tired of living in the past when all I want is to move forward. Then stop. She looked at him sharply. What? You've testified in 12 trials, 12 convictions. The FBI has everything they need for the remaining cases. Wells's confession. The physical evidence, the paper trail you compiled. They don't need you to keep tearing yourself apart. But nothing. You've done enough, Leah. More than enough. Trevor wouldn't want you destroying yourself for justice that's already been served. She was quiet for a long moment. Agent Chen said something similar yesterday. Said I'd given them everything they needed, that the remaining trials were formalities. So why keep putting yourself through it? Because... She paused, really thinking about it. Because I don't know what else to do. For 2 years, getting justice for Trevor was my whole life. Then surviving the aftermath, testifying, making sure they all paid. Without that, who am I?
Noah turned her to face him. You're Leah Morgan. You're the woman who fought corruption when everyone else was too scared. You're the person Max asks for when he has nightmares. You're the one Atlas trusts to understand his moods. You're... He paused, gathering courage. You're the woman I'm falling in love with. The words hung in the snowy air between them. They'd been dancing around it for months, careful not to push too hard or move too fast. But standing there seeing her pain, Noah couldn't hold back anymore. Noah, I know it's complicated. I know we both have ghosts, but Leah, at some point we have to choose whether we're living for the dead or the living. She kissed him, then fierce and desperate, like she was trying to choose life through sheer force of will. When they pulled apart, she was crying. I want to be done, she whispered. I want to stop living in that warehouse watching Trevor die over and over. I want to just be here with you and Max and Atlas. Is that wrong? That's the most right thing you've said in months. They stayed on the porch until the cold drove them inside, then sat by the fire, planning what came next. Leah would tell Chen she was done testifying. She'd apply for a position with the state police, something that would let her stay in law enforcement, but without the weight of Millbrook's history. They'd finish settling into their life together, whatever that ended up looking like. Max wants us to get married, Leah said suddenly. Max wants a lot of things. He also wants a pet dinosaur. No, I mean... She turned to face him fully. He asked me yesterday. Said his mom had been gone long enough that she wouldn't mind if I wanted to be his mom too. Noah's throat tightened. What did you tell him? That being someone's mom was a big responsibility, and I'd have to make sure I was good enough at it first. And he said I was already good at it, I just didn't have the official title yet. Kid's too smart for his own good. Gets it from his dad.
Leah took a breath. Noah, I need to tell you something about Trevor and me before he died. Noah waited, sensing this was important. We were having problems. Nothing major, just drifting. The miscarriage had been hard and we handled it differently. He threw himself into work, I pulled away. We were in counseling, trying to find our way back to each other. The night he died, we'd had a fight about him taking extra shifts instead of coming to therapy. Leah, I'm not telling you this to diminish what we had. I love Trevor completely, but I need you to know that you're not competing with a perfect ghost. Trevor was human. Our marriage was human with all the complications that implies. What I'm building with you, it's not a replacement or a consolation prize. It's something entirely new. Noah pulled her close. Sarah and I were the same. The last year before she died, we'd been struggling. Having Max so young, my PTSD from deployment, her long hours at the hospital. We loved each other, but love doesn't make everything easy. The day she died, we'd argued about me forgetting to pick up milk. Such a stupid last conversation. They held each other, these two people who understood that love was complicated, that loss didn't erase the difficulties, that moving forward meant accepting all of it, the good and bad, the perfect memories and the imperfect realities. Atlas padded over, sensing the heavy emotions, and wedged himself between them, making them both laugh. Moment killer, Leah accused fondly. He learned from Max, Noah said. As if summoned by his name, Max appeared in his pajamas. I can't sleep. My brain won't turn off. It had been happening more lately, the delayed trauma of the shooting manifesting as insomnia and anxiety. The child therapist said it was normal that it would pass, but knowing that didn't make it easier to watch. Come here, buddy, Noah said, and Max climbed into his lap, still small enough to curl up like he had as a toddler. Want to talk about it? Leah asked gently. I keep thinking about the what-ifs. What if you hadn't found Leah? What if the bad men had won? What if they come back? That's a lot of what-ifs, Noah said. But here's what actually happened. I did find Leah. The bad men didn't win, and they're not coming back. How do you know they're not coming back? Leah answered this time. Because we made it too hard for them. Because the whole town is watching out for us. Because Atlas would alert us. But mostly because bad people are usually cowards, and cowards don't take on whole communities. Max seemed to consider this, then asked, Were you scared during the shooting? Terrified, Noah admitted, but being scared didn't stop me from protecting you. I was scared too, Leah added, but being scared meant I was still alive to fight. Atlas wasn't scared, Max said. He was just angry.
Atlas was protecting his people, Noah said. That's what family does. We're officially family now, Max asked. Noah and Leah exchanged glances over his head. Yeah, buddy, Noah said. We're officially family. Good, Max said decisively. Can I sleep out here tonight? They made a nest of blankets on the floor by the fire, the four of them piled together like a pack. Max fell asleep quickly, safe between the adults, one hand on Atlas's fur. The dog huffed contentedly, finally fully relaxed after months of vigilance. This is what I want, Leah whispered in the darkness. This exact thing. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Then that's what we'll have, Noah promised. The next morning brought unexpected news. Agent Chen called to inform them that the last 3 defendants had changed their pleas to guilty, hoping for leniency. No more trials, no more testimony. It was over. Leah sat down hard at the kitchen table, the phone still in her hand. I don't know how to feel, she said numbly. I've been preparing for 3 more months of trials, and now, nothing. Not nothing, Noah corrected. Everything. Everything can start now. Max, eating cereal with his usual enthusiasm, looked up. Does this mean Leah can come to my school thing without having to leave for court? Yeah, buddy, it does. Cool. Also, can we get a Christmas tree? A real one, eh? Atlas has never had a Christmas tree. The normalcy of the request, the assumption of a shared Christmas, broke through Leah's shock. She laughed. Really laughed for the first time in days. Yes, we can get a tree. The biggest one we can fit through the door. Atlas is going to love it, Max said confidently. They got the tree that afternoon, all 4 of them tromping through the snow at Jensen's tree farm, arguing good-naturedly about height and fullness and whether Atlas trying to mark every tree was helpful or not. Other families were there, and several people approached to shake Leah's hand to thank her for what she'd done. She handled it graciously, but Noah could see the weight of being a public hero when she felt anything but heroic. That evening, decorating the tree, something shifted. Max hung an ornament Sarah had made their first Christmas together, then asked Leah if she had any ornaments from her life with Trevor. A few, she admitted. They're still in a box somewhere. We should hang them too, Max said matter-of-factly. They're part of our family history now. So Leah retrieved them Trevor's police badge ornament, a photo ornament from their wedding, a silly dancing reindeer Trevor had loved. They hung alongside Sarah's handmade decorations and new ones Max had made at school, creating a tree that told the story of lives intersected by loss and rebuilt with hope. Veterans Day came the next week. Noah stood in front of Max's class in his regular clothes, no uniform, no medals, just a dad talking to kids about service and sacrifice and why some people choose to protect others. He kept it simple, age-appropriate, but honest. Leah spoke next in her dress uniform that still fit despite months of civilian life. She talked about being a police officer, about protecting and serving, about how sometimes doing the right thing was scary but necessary. She didn't mention Trevor or Price or the shooting, but somehow her message was more powerful for what she didn't say. Max beamed through it all, proud enough to burst. An Atlas special permission granted sat beside him wearing a vest that said Hero Dog that Max had made himself. Afterward, Ms. Henderson pulled them aside. Max has been doing much better, she said. Less anxiety, more engaged. Whatever you're doing at home, keep it up. What they were doing was simply living. Noah thought. Building routines, creating stability, showing Max that life could be good even after bad things happened. Thanksgiving arrived with the first real blizzard of the season. They'd planned to spend it with Jim and Margaret, but the snow made travel impossible. Instead, they found themselves snowed in, just the 4 of them, with a turkey Noah had bought just in case and no idea how to cook it. Mom always did the turkey, and he admitted, staring at the bird like it was a complex military operation. Trevor always deep-fried ours, Leah said. Nearly burned down the garage once. We could order pizza, Max suggested hopefully. No one's delivering in this weather, buddy. They ended up cobbling together dinner from YouTube videos and frantic text messages to Margaret, who talked them through it step by step. The turkey was dry, the stuffing was soggy, and the cranberry sauce was still can-shaped, but sitting around their table, snow falling outside Atlas, begging shamelessly, it was perfect. What are you thankful for? Max asked the traditional question. You,
Noah said simply. This family, second chances. Ditto, Leah said, then elaborated. I'm thankful for crashed cars and stubborn men who don't leave strangers to die. For boys who ask hard questions and dogs who remember love. For the chance to start over when I thought my life was over. I'm thankful Atlas didn't die, Max said, and that Dad's a hero, and that Leah makes better pancakes than Dad. Hey. It's true, Max said solemnly. Your pancakes are like hockey pucks. Even Noah had to admit that was fair. After dinner, they played board games and watched movies, the kind of lazy family day Noah hadn't realized he'd been missing. Leah fell asleep on the couch, her head on his shoulder, and Noah sat there watching the snow fall. Max and Atlas both snoring softly, and felt something he hadn't experienced since before Sarah's death, complete contentment. The moment was broken by his phone buzzing, Jim checking that they were okay in the storm. Then another text from Agent Chen. The last of Price's network had been sentenced. Minimum 20 years for the least involved life without parole for the worst. Justice as much as the system could provide. Noah showed the text to Leah when she stirred. It's really over, she said wonderingly. No? Noah corrected. It's really beginning. December brought preparations for a different kind of future. Leah was accepted to the State Police Academy for a refresher course before taking a position with their major crimes unit. It would mean 3 months away during the week home on weekends. I don't have to take it, she said, watching Max's face fall at the news. Yes, you do, Max said firmly, surprising everyone. It's your job. You're good at it. We'll be okay. When did you get so mature? Leah asked, hugging him. Tuesdays. Max replied his standard answer that always made them laugh. The night before she left for the academy, Noah found her packing and repacking nervous, in a way she hadn't been even during the trials. What if I can't do it anymore? She asked. What if what happened broke something in me that can't be fixed? Then you come home and we figure out something else. But Leah, you're not broken. You're just healing. There's a difference. How do you know? Because I've been both. Broken after Afghanistan, healing after Sarah. You're healing. She kissed him, then soft and grateful. What would I do without you? Probably the exact same thing, just with less commentary. I love you, she said, the first time she'd said it clearly without qualification. I love you too, Noah replied, meaning it completely. Atlas chose that moment to nose between them, tail wagging, and they laughed, including him in their embrace. The dog had brought them together in the strangest way possible, and now he was the guardian of what they'd built. The academy weeks were hard but manageable. Leah called every night talking to Max about his day, helping with homework over video chat, reading bedtime stories over the phone. Noah could see her confidence returning, her sense of purpose rebuilding. She was good at being a cop and denying that part of herself would have been another kind of death. Weekends were celebrations. Max would wait by the window Friday evenings, Atlas beside him until Leah's car appeared. Then it was a race to see who could reach her first. Usually Atlas won, nearly knocking her over with enthusiasm. During one of these weekends, 2 weeks before Christmas, Max made an announcement. I want to change my name. Noah and Leah exchanged confused glances. What do you mean, buddy? Noah asked. Not my whole name, just I want to add Morgan to it. Max Reed Morgan. Or Morgan Reed, is that okay? Leah's eyes filled with tears. Max, you don't have to. I want to. You're my mom now, right? Not my first mom, but my now mom. So I should have your name too. Noah watched Leah struggle for words, finally just pulling Max into a fierce hug. We'll need to do paperwork, Noah said, his own voice rough. Make it official. Can we do it before Christmas? Max asked hopefully. We can try. They did more than try. Jim knew a judge who expedited family court matters, and a week before Christmas, Max officially became Max Reed Morgan, hyphenated to honor both families that had shaped him. The courtroom ceremony was small, just them, Jim and Margaret, Agent Chen, who'd become a friend, but it felt momentous. Now, we're really family, Max said, admiring his new name on the court document. We were always family, Leah said. This just makes it legal. Christmas Eve brought another surprise. Noah had been planning to propose on New Year's, had the ring hidden in his sock drawer, the speech half planned.
But standing in their living room watching Leah help Max hang the last ornament while Atlas supervised, he realized waiting was pointless. They'd already built a life together. Everything else was just paperwork. "Marry me," he said suddenly. Leah nearly dropped the ornament. "What?" "Marry me. Not someday, not when we're ready, not when some arbitrary amount of time has passed. Marry me now, or tomorrow, or next week. But soon." "Dad, you're supposed to get on one knee," Max Stage whispered. Noah dropped to one knee, pulling out the ring he'd impulsively grabbed. "Leah Morgan, you crashed into my life literally and changed everything. You brought light back into our darkness. You gave Max another parent to love. You gave Atlas his purpose back. You gave me a reason to believe in forever again. Will you marry us, all of us?" "Say yes," Max shouted, unable to contain himself. Atlas barked, apparently also voting. Leah was crying and laughing simultaneously. "Yes, of course, yes, but Noah, no buts. We've had enough buts and maybes and what ifs, just yes." "Yes, Thee," she said again, and Max cheered while Atlas ran victory laps around the living room. They were married 2 weeks later in Jim's barn because another blizzard made the church inaccessible. The guest list was whoever could make it through the snow, a handful of townspeople, Agent Chen, some cops from Leah's academy class, 2 of Noah's army buddies who drove through the night to be there. Max was the ring bearer. Atlas was the best dog, and Margaret cried enough for everyone. The ceremony was simple, the vows heartfelt and honest about the broken roads that had brought them together. "You saved my life," Leah said to Noah. "In every way a person can be saved." "You gave mine meaning again," Noah replied. "You and Max and Atlas, you're my squad, my unit, my family." When they kissed, Max covered his eyes dramatically while Atlas howled, making everyone laugh. The reception was in Jim's living room, furniture, pushed-back music playing from someone's phone. Noah watched Leah dance with Max, both of them laughing, as they tried to avoid stepping on Atlas, who insisted on being part of every dance. "Never thought I'd see this," Jim said, appearing beside Noah with 2 beers. "You happy again, that boy with a complete family. Hell, even that dog looks content." "It shouldn't work," Noah said. "Everything about how we came together was wrong." "Maybe," Jim agreed. "Or maybe it was exactly right. Maybe sometimes life has to break us completely before we can rebuild into something better. That's either very wise or very depressing. Both probably, but look at them." He gestured to where Leah was now teaching Max some complicated dance move while Atlas tried to participate. "Tell me that's not worth everything you went through to get here." Noah couldn't argue with that. Later, much later, after Max had fallen asleep on the couch and been carried to the guest room after the last guests had trudged home through the snow, Noah and Leah stood in the barn doorway watching the night sky. "No regrets?" he asked. "None. You?" "I regret not finding you sooner. You found me exactly when you were supposed to. Any earlier and we wouldn't have been ready. Any later and it would have been too late." "That's a very romantic view of me discovering you bleeding in a crashed police cruiser." "Romance is relative," Leah said. "Besides, our story was never going to be conventional." "What do you think Trevor and Sarah would say about us?" Leah considered. "I think they'd be glad we found each other. They loved us enough to want us happy, even if that happiness came after they were gone. Max asked me once if they were friends now in heaven. What did you tell him?" "That I hoped so. That they had a lot in common, loving difficult people dying too young, leaving behind families that had to figure out how to go on. We did okay with the going on part. Better than okay." They stood there in comfortable silence, 2 people who'd lost everything and somehow found even more until Atlas appeared and herded them inside with the patient insistence of a dog who knew his people needed to be warm. Their wedding night was spent in their own bed in the house they'd built with Max and Atlas, both somehow ending up with them by morning because it was too special a night to sleep alone. And maybe that was perfect too, Noah thought, watching the sunrise paint the mountains gold, while his family, complete, complicated, and utterly perfect, slept around him. They'd been forged in crisis, built on loss, shadowed by threat, but they'd emerged as something stronger than the sum of their broken parts. The single dad who'd found a dying cop had become a husband again. The widow seeking justice had become a mother. The traumatized child had gained a family. The broken dog had found his purpose. It wasn't the life any of them had planned, but it was the life they'd fought for, bled for, chosen, despite all the reasons not to. And in the end, that made it worth more than anything they'd lost. Outside, fresh snow began to fall, covering their tracks from the night before, offering a clean slate for whatever came next. Inside, Atlas stirred, sensed all was well, and settled back into sleep. They were home. They were family. They were whole. And that Noah thought as Leah shifted closer to him in sleep was its own kind of miracle.